My son looked straight at me and walked past. Not near me, not around me, past me. I had already lifted both arms for the hug. One hand was still wet because I'd been digging through a cooler for the sparkling water he'd asked me to buy for his father-in-law. The other was holding a dish towel. I must have looked like I was directing traffic at the world's saddest intersection. Marcus's eyes met mine for one clean second. Then he put his hand against the back of the silver-haired man beside him and said, "Graham, this is my Uncle Calvin, the famous property owner." Calvin laughed and reached out to shake Graham's hand. Marcus moved his wife and her parents forward with him, the four of them flowing around me like water around a rock. I lowered my arms. Marcus introduced them to Aunt Denise, although Denise was technically my sister-in-law and had met Marcus's wife twice. He introduced them to 3 cousins, a neighbor named Lee, who had only wandered over because he smelled barbecue, and Calvin's old college roommate, whose name Marcus got wrong. He did not introduce them to me. The question that came into my mind was not, does my son see me? He had seen me. The question was, what had he told these people that made pretending not to know his own mother easier than saying my name? "Evelyn, honey, do you know where Calvin hid the bottle opener?" Denise called from behind the drink table. "In the blue tub," I said. There were 5 blue tubs. That was Denise's revenge for my answering too quickly. She bent over the nearest one, bracelets clattering down her wrist, and began moving bags of ice as if the bottle opener might be trapped beneath them. She had spent the morning insisting she could help while proving that help was a concept she supported in theory. "The one marked utensils," I added. "Oh, well, that would have been useful information. It's written on the lid." She straightened and squinted down. "You use silver marker on a gray lid. Calvin bought the markers." "Of course he did. For 10 seconds we were ourselves." Then Denise glanced over my shoulder toward Marcus. "He finally made it," she said. "Look at him." I didn't turn around. I looked. Something in my voice slowed her hands. Denise knew when not to ask a question. Unfortunately, she believed the proper waiting period was 6 seconds. Did he say hello? Not yet. Well, they just got here. They did. She watched me fold the dish towel once, then again until it was too narrow to be useful. Across the yard, Marcus laughed at something Graham said. I knew that laugh. It was his company laugh, not fake exactly, but polished. He used it when he wanted someone to think he was relaxed. I had heard the unpolished version 2 nights earlier at 11:47. "Ma, did you get the water?" he'd asked without saying hello. "I'm fine, thank you. My blood pressure is excellent." He had sighed. "You know what I mean. I know what you said. Can you please not be like this Saturday?" "Like what? Alive?" "Ma, I had been sitting on the edge of my bed with one slipper on, rubbing lotion into a heel that had become unexpectedly old. Marcus sounded tired, so I let him hurry me. Yes, I got the sparkling water. Glass bottles? Yes. Lime? Yes, Marcus. And can you make sure there's somewhere shaded for Louise? Heat gives her migraines." I had looked at the legal pad beside me. Louise shade, no raw onion. Graham, lime water, likes ribs dry. Tessa, no mayonnaise unless homemade, which seemed less like a preference than a cry for attention. I moved 2 tables under the maple tree, I said. "Good. Thank you." A silence followed, soft enough that I could hear Tessa speaking somewhere behind him. He covered the phone, replied to her, and came back. "I just want this to go smoothly." "So do I. This is the first time everybody's meeting. I'm aware. I bought your shirt. That was 6 years ago. You're welcome in advance." He gave a small laugh then, the real one. "All right, I'll see you Saturday." "Marcus?" "Yeah?" I almost asked if he was nervous for me to meet them. Instead, I said, "Drive safely." Now he was standing 20 yards away wearing that same pale green shirt. I recognized the tiny dark button near his throat where I had replaced the original after it cracked. He had complained that my replacement did not match. I told him anyone close enough to notice owed him dinner. Tessa saw me first. She was lovely in a way that looked effortless until you noticed how carefully everything had been chosen. Cream-colored pants at a reunion where people were carrying sauce was either confidence or madness. Her dark hair was pinned loosely at her neck, and she had the expression of a person trying to enjoy herself while monitoring 6 exits. She touched Marcus's arm. He glanced toward me and then toward Graham, who was still talking to Calvin. Marcus said something to Tessa. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on me a moment longer. I smiled. She gave me a quick smile back, then turned to Louise. That made 5 adults participating in something I did not understand. Evelyn. Calvin appeared with a roll of paper towels tucked under one arm. "Where's that mustard sauce?" "Which one?" "The one I like." "You like all mustard." "The sweet one with the kick. That describes 3 of them." He frowned as if I had created excessive mustard to humiliate him. "The one you made last year. Second refrigerator, bottom shelf, behind the coleslaw. You got a map for that refrigerator?" "Yes. It's taped to the door." Calvin stared at me. "I'm joking." "You joke, but you label tubs. Go find your sauce." He shuffled toward the house, still carrying the paper towels. At 65, Calvin had the shoulders of a man who once lifted things for fun and now pointed at them until someone younger appeared. He called the riverside acreage the property, as if surveyors might arrive at any moment to recognize it as a sovereign nation. It was 6 uneven acres, a ranch house, a tool shed leaning to the left, and enough poison ivy to discourage invasion. The Carter reunion had been held there for 17 years. Calvin hosted it. I did everything that made hosting distinguishable from opening a gate. I told myself I enjoyed it, and mostly I did. I liked watching people arrive carrying folding chairs and grudges. I liked knowing Cousin Pamela would bring 2 pies and pretend she had made both, though the sticker on the bottom of one always said, "Food Lion." I liked seeing the white canopy rise every year after 4 adults argued over poles marked A, B, and C. After my husband Leonard died, the reunion gave shape to summer. It was one of the few places where no one asked if I was keeping busy. They already knew. If I stopped moving long enough to answer, lunch would be late. "Excuse me?" The voice beside me belonged to Louise Whitmore. Up close, she was not imposing. She was small, beautifully dressed, and pink across the cheeks from the heat. A thin gold chain held her glasses against her chest. She smiled with polite uncertainty. "Do you happen to know where the napkins are?" I looked at Marcus. He stood beside her, close enough to hear. In fact, he was holding the box of napkins I had left on the welcome table. It was tucked beneath his arm. His gaze dropped to the box. Then, instead of handing it to Louise, he offered it to me. "Here, Ma." The word landed between us like something slipped under a door. Louise looked from him to me. Before either of us could speak, Graham called, "Lou, you need to see this river." She turned automatically. "Coming." Marcus set the napkins in my hands. "Hey," he said. "Hey, we just got here. Yes, I saw your arrival." He glanced toward Tessa. Can we not do the tone? I almost admired the speed of it. He had walked past me, handed me my own napkins, and already I had a tone. "What would you prefer?" I asked. He lowered his voice. "Please?" "Not today." "Not what today?" "Whatever this is." I looked down at the cardboard box between my hands. The front said Premium Guest Towels, which was an ambitious name for paper napkins. "You tell me," I said. Tessa appeared before he could answer. "There you are," she said to Marcus, then leaned in and kissed my cheek. Her lips barely touched my skin. "Hi, Evelyn. Everything looks beautiful. Thank you. Mom loves the shade." I moved the table for her. "I know," Marcus said. There it was again, that little shift. Marcus telling Tessa I had arranged things. Marcus telling me his in-laws knew who I was. Everybody holding a corner of a story no one had bothered to hand me. Tessa took the napkins. "I'll put these out." "You don't have to do that," Marcus said. She looked at him. "I think I can survive napkins." I didn't mean, I know. Their marriage lived in that exchange. Care, irritation, habit, and a warning small enough to hide in public. A car horn sounded near the gravel drive. Cousin Pamela had arrived, waving through her windshield like she had returned from war rather than Richmond. "Oh, Lord," Denise said. "Here comes the pie liar." I laughed before I could stop myself. Marcus smiled too. For half a second, his face softened, and I saw the man who still opened my refrigerator without asking, who called me from hardware stores because he never remembered the difference between Flathead and Phillips, who once drove 80 miles because I mentioned my porch light was flickering. Then Graham came up behind him and clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Your uncle tells me you practically grew up out here." Marcus turned. "Every summer." Not true. Calvin bought the place when Marcus was 21. Some of the best years of my life, Marcus added. Also not true. At 21, Marcus hated bugs, family gatherings, and any chair that left lines on the backs of his legs. I waited for him to bring me into the memory. I could have done it for him. I could have mentioned Leonard teaching him to grill on our apartment balcony, the smoke alarm going off, the upstairs neighbor yelling that we were trying to kill everybody. I could have made Graham laugh. I had done it all Marcus's life, filled uncomfortable spaces with stories in which he came out charming. This time I stayed quiet. Pamela climbed out of her car carrying 2 pie boxes. "Homemade," Denise whispered. "Which one?" I whispered back. "The one without the store receipt stuck to the side." Pamela reached us and kissed the air beside my face. "Where do you want these?" "Dessert table." She looked past me and brightened. "Marcus! You made it." He hugged her warmly enough that I noticed. Pamela held him at arm's length. "And you must be the famous in-laws." Marcus began the introductions again. Graham, Louise, Tessa, though Pamela had met Tessa at the wedding. Then Pamela pointed at me with both pie boxes balanced on one forearm. "And obviously you know Evelyn." No one answered immediately. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. Louise smiled at me, but it was the smile of someone being shown a person she had already been told not to discuss. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't believe we were properly introduced." The yard seemed to go quiet, though it hadn't. Someone shouted near the horseshoe pit. A serving tray fell. Calvin yelled from the kitchen that the mustard sauce was not where I said it was. Marcus opened his mouth. Tessa looked at him. I waited. My son had the easiest sentence in the world available to him. Instead, he glanced toward the house and said, "We should probably get that food out before it gets cold." "I'm Evelyn," I said. Louise's eyes moved to Marcus and back to me. "Louise, nice to meet you." "You too." We shook hands. It was absurdly formal. Her hand was cool and dry. Mine smelled faintly of charcoal and the lemon soap in Calvin's kitchen. Graham stepped forward with the open expression of a man who had missed every signal in the last 30 seconds. Graham Whitmore, Evelyn Carter, Calvin's sister, Marcus's mother. His smile held, but a small adjustment happened behind it. "Oh," he said. Of course was doing dangerous work that afternoon. Pamela looked at Marcus. She did not say anything, which for Pamela amounted to banging a gavel. Then she turned and carried her pies toward the dessert table, both boxes now tilted enough to threaten the meringue. Calvin called from the back door again. "Evelyn, I found the sauce." "Congratulations." It was behind the potato salad. I said coleslaw. You said potato salad. I would never hide anything behind your potato salad. It's unstable. Graham laughed. Marcus did too, a little late. "Come on," Marcus said, putting his hand on Graham's shoulder. "You've got to try Uncle Calvin's ribs." Calvin had not cooked the ribs. Denise had seasoned them. I had put them in the smoker at 6 that morning. Calvin had opened the lid twice and said, "Looking good," which apparently transferred ownership. I watched Marcus lead the Whitmores toward the food tables. Tessa stayed. She still had the napkins tucked against her hip. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what?" "This is a lot for him." I glanced toward Marcus. He was handing Graham a plate. "Lunch?" She drew one breath through her nose. "You know that isn't what I mean." "No, I don't." A cousin reached between us for a handful of napkins, and Tessa gave him the whole box. He took 3 and stood there, uncertain what to do with the rest. "Put them by the forks," I told him. He obeyed with visible relief. Tessa lowered her voice. "Marcus has been anxious about bringing our parents together. Why they're different. From me? From this." She gestured toward the yard, and I looked with her. Aunt Denise was arguing with a crockpot cord. Calvin's roommate, Howard, had taken his shoes off near the horseshoe pit. Lee, the neighbor, was piling ribs on a plate, despite not having been invited. The canopy leaned slightly toward the river, but it did that every year and had never killed anyone. "What part of this frightens him?" I asked. Tessa's jaw tightened. "Please don't make me say something I didn't say. That's fair. Tell me what you did say." I said, "This is a lot," and I asked why. She looked toward Marcus again. He caught her eye and gave a quick shake of his head. "Not here," it said. "Maybe not now. Or perhaps, do not tell her." Tessa pressed her lips together. "I should help Mom with her plate. Of course." She walked away. Denise appeared beside me carrying 2 serving spoons and the expression of a woman who had just witnessed a suspicious exchange through binoculars. What was that? She was complimenting the canopy. "It looks terrible. I know. Are you and Marcus fighting? Apparently it would be a lot if we did." Denise stared at me. I took the serving spoons from her. "Where are these going?" "One in the green beans, one in the macaroni. Don't change the subject." I didn't. I replaced it with green beans. Evie. Only Denise called me Evie, and only when she wanted access to an emotion I had not put out for general use. "Later," I said. She studied my face, then nodded. "All right. But you eat something." "I will." "You say that every year. And every year I eventually eat. Standing over the sink at 9 o'clock. The sink doesn't ask questions." She squeezed my arm and went to rescue Calvin, who was trying to rearrange the food line while people were already in it. I carried the spoons to the table. For the next hour, I did what I always did when I didn't know what to feel. I made myself necessary. I found an extension cord. I wrapped a wet towel around a bottle of white wine because Pamela had brought it warm. I moved the macaroni out of direct sunlight and put a second spoon in the baked beans, after Lee dropped the first one in the grass and attempted to wipe it on his shirt. People arrived, ate, and complained affectionately. Cousin Raymond said traffic had been terrible, though he lived 12 minutes away. Howard claimed he was avoiding carbohydrates while putting macaroni on top of a dinner roll. Denise whispered that Pamela's homemade lemon pie had a barcode. Every few minutes I caught sight of Marcus. He was attentive to Louise carrying her plate and checking whether the shade was enough. He asked Graham questions and listened to the answers. He touched Tessa's lower back whenever he passed her. He was being a good husband and a considerate son-in-law. That was part of what made it hurt. Cruel people are simple. You can put them in a box and label the lid. Marcus was not cruel. He remembered to send me a photograph every year on the anniversary of Leonard's death, usually one I had forgotten existed. He changed the batteries in my smoke detectors without being asked. When I had the flu, he left groceries on my porch and called twice a day until my voice sounded normal. Yet there he was, offering all his warmth in a direction that did not include me. "Miss Evelyn?" Graham stood across the table, holding an empty paper plate. He was older than I had first thought, probably early 70s, with a deep line between his eyebrows that gave him a stern look until he smiled. "Just Evelyn is fine. These ribs are exceptional." "Tell Denise. I thought Calvin made them. Calvin has encouraged that belief." Graham laughed. "Then I should tell Calvin while still thanking the responsible parties. That makes you more advanced than most of this family." He reached for another rib, then hesitated. "Marcus speaks very highly of Calvin. I'm sure he does. Says this place was important to him growing up." I adjusted the aluminum foil under the serving tray. Marcus was grown when Calvin bought it. Graham paused. "Maybe he meant coming back here as an adult," I added. "Maybe." We both understood that he had not. He cleared his throat. "Louise and I appreciate being included. We were a little unsure about coming." "Why?" "Oh, you know. Family reunion. Outsiders. You're Tessa's family. That makes you family now. His face softened with what looked like genuine gratitude. That's kind of you. It's also how marriage works, whether anybody likes it or not. He laughed again. I liked him, which was inconvenient. From the other side of the yard, Marcus watched us. His face had gone still. When Graham excused himself, Marcus came over immediately. What were you two talking about? Mustard sauce. Ma, ribs, then mustard sauce, then the legal consequences of marrying into this family. You didn't say anything weird, did you? I stared at him. He realized it as soon as the words were out, but pride got there before apology. You know what I mean? No, Marcus. I'm learning today that I don't know what you mean at all. He set his jaw. I just want them to have a good time. Then I suggest you stop interrogating their conversations. I'm not interrogating anybody. Good. We've solved it. Why are you acting like this? I picked up the nearly empty tray of ribs. Like what? Cold. The tray was hot enough to sting my fingertips through the foil. That must be uncomfortable for you, I said. I carried it toward the house before he could answer. Inside, the kitchen was dim after the glare of the yard. Every counter held something. Empty containers, foil, half a watermelon, 3 bottles of salad dressing nobody had used. The refrigerator door stood open. Calvin was bent over the second shelf. What are you looking for now? I asked. Nothing. You have half your body in the refrigerator. I'm putting something away. He emerged holding the mustard sauce. You're eating it with a spoon, I said. It's my house. That doesn't make it medicine. He noticed my face and set the jar down. What happened? Nothing. Marcus been here 10 minutes and already getting on your nerves? He's been here over an hour. Calvin glanced at the clock. No. Yes. Well, damn. I slid the rib tray onto the counter. Calvin picked up the sauce again but did not eat it. His wife's parents seem nice. They do. The father knows boats. You've never owned a boat. I've considered one. You get seasick on docks. He screwed the lid onto the jar. You want me to say something to Marcus? The offer surprised me. Calvin avoided family tension with the skill of a man escaping a restaurant bill. What would you say? He thought about it. I'd ask him what his problem is. Then he'd say he doesn't have one. I'd tell him it looks like he does. And then? Calvin looked toward the open back door. I don't know. I hadn't worked out a second part. Strong beginning, though. I thought so. I touched his shoulder as I passed. Leave it alone. He caught my wrist gently. You sure? No. That answer sat between us. Calvin released me. All right, he said. But I can be rude on very short notice. You're rude every day. Then nobody will suspect anything. Outside, Denise was tapping a plastic cup with a fork. Everybody, before Calvin starts handing out speeches nobody asked for, I got one joke, Calvin called from the doorway. You've had that joke since 2009. People laughed and gathered closer. I stayed near the back steps. Denise thanked everyone for coming. She thanked Pamela for the pies, Howard for driving down from Maryland, and Lee for bringing himself, since he had contributed nothing else. Lee lifted his beer. My pleasure. Then Marcus stepped beside her. I'll be quick, he said. A phone rose to record him. Marcus smiled, comfortable now that everyone was looking. I just want to thank Uncle Calvin for keeping this tradition going all these years. Calvin nodded solemnly, accepting credit as naturally as sunlight. And Aunt Denise, Marcus continued, for keeping all the Carter traditions alive and making everybody feel welcome. Denise's smile faltered. Her eyes found mine. Marcus raised his cup. To family, people answered. I did too. Habit is powerful. Lunch loosened into the drowsy part of the afternoon. People moved chairs toward the shade. The horseshoe game became louder and less accurate. Louise sat with Pamela, listening to a story that required Pamela to touch her own chest repeatedly. Tessa approached me holding her phone. Evelyn, would you mind taking a picture? Of course. She guided me toward the maple tree where Marcus stood between Graham and Louise. Calvin and Denise joined them. Pamela hurried over and pulled Raymond into place. Somebody called for Howard. Tessa handed me the phone, then stepped beside Marcus. Through the screen, I watched my son put one arm around his wife and the other around Louise. Everyone shifted and laughed. Denise looked out from the group directly at me. "Evelyn should be in this," she said. Tessa's smile dropped. Marcus looked at the lowering sun. "Can we just take it? Graham and Louise need to get on the road. They had told me they were staying at a hotel 15 minutes away." No one moved. I lifted the phone. "Everybody look here," I said. They did. I took 3 photographs. In the last one, Marcus was smiling perfectly. When I handed the phone back to Tessa, I told her I had a headache. She said she was sorry to hear that. Marcus was close enough to hear me. He said nothing. I found my purse inside, changed out of my blue shoes by the front door, and carried them to the car in my hand. The gravel hurt my feet, but I did not go back. Nobody followed me. I made it halfway down Calvin's Road before I realized I was still holding the name tag Denise had made me. Evelyn, it said in thick black letters, with a little red heart underneath. I peeled it from my dress at a stop sign and set it on the passenger seat beside my shoes. The adhesive left a gray strip of lint over my heart. My phone buzzed in my purse. For one foolish second, I thought Marcus had noticed. It was Denise. "You left your peach cobbler." A second message appeared. "Also, are you okay?" I drove another mile before I pulled onto the shoulder. Headache. Didn't want to make a thing of it. 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. "Your headache or Marcus?" I put the phone face down and drove home. My house was cool and quiet. I had turned the air conditioning lower than usual before leaving because I had imagined Marcus and Tessa coming back with me after the reunion. I had bought coffee he liked and put clean sheets on the bed in the spare room, although they lived only an hour away and had made no suggestion that they would stay. Hope makes fools of us in very domestic ways. I hung my blue dress over the back of a dining chair rather than taking it upstairs. The fabric was damp under the arms and wrinkled at the waist. I stood looking at it as if somebody else had worn it to a disappointing event and left me responsible for cleaning it. The refrigerator contained food for people who had not come home with me. Strawberries, half and half, a small container of the olive spread Tessa liked. I closed the door and ate 6 saltine crackers over the sink. Denise called twice. Calvin called once. Pamela sent a picture of the lemon pie with the message, "You missed the good one," which was how I learned Pamela had either missed the tension entirely or considered pie a treatment. Marcus did not call. At 7, I changed into my nightgown. At 8, I turned on a detective show and watched the same man get murdered 3 times because I kept realizing I had not heard the last 20 minutes. At 9:15, Tessa texted, "Hope your head feels better. Thank you for everything today." I read it until the words stopped meaning anything. "Thank you for everything" was what you wrote to a caterer you would not hire again. I typed, "You're welcome." Then I deleted it. I typed, "I'm fine," deleted that too. Finally, I placed the phone on the end table and let her message go unanswered. It was the first thing all day I had not taken care of. Sleep came in thin pieces. I dreamed that everyone at the reunion was calling for serving spoons while I searched a house with no kitchen. At 8 the next morning, someone knocked hard enough to rattle the glass in my front door. I knew it was Marcus because he had his own rhythm. 3 quick knocks, a pause, then 2 more as if he were correcting the first 3. I stayed seated at the kitchen table. He knocked again. "Ma, I can see your car." I looked down at the flowered robe I had owned since Leonard was alive. One pocket hung lower than the other because I kept putting my phone in it. Normally, I would have changed before opening the door to Marcus. I would have brushed my hair and made our closeness look less close. I opened it as I was. He held a foil tray covered in plastic wrap. "You left before dessert," he said. "No good morning." "No," I said. "Dessert happened after I left." He looked at the tray, then back at me. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He walked straight to the kitchen, put put the tray on the counter and opened the cupboard where I kept the coffee mugs. He took down the green one he always used. There was no coffee made. He stared at the empty pot. "You feeling okay?" "My head is better." "Good." He filled the pot with water. I watched him measure coffee grounds as if he had come to service an appliance. "What's in the tray?" "Cobblers. Some of that lemon pie." "Pamela sent both?" "Aunt Denise." "Denise isn't your aunt. She's been Aunt Denise my whole life. Then perhaps you should have thanked her accurately." His hand stopped over the coffee filter. "Is that what this is about? What is this?" He shut the lid of the coffee maker too hard. "Aunt Denise said you were upset. Did she?" "She said I needed to come over." I almost laughed. "So that's why you're here. I would have come anyway." "When? What difference does that make?" "Several hours. Possibly a day." The coffee maker made a wet, choking sound. Marcus leaned against the counter with his arms folded. He looked tired. There were faint shadows beneath his eyes, and he had not shaved. Usually that would have activated something in me before I could stop it. Food, advice, a hand against his cheek. I stayed at the table. He said, "Why did you leave like that?" "I had a headache." "Come on, you accepted it yesterday. You disappeared." Tessa noticed. I held his gaze. "Did you?" His mouth tightened. Everybody noticed. "That isn't what I asked. I'm here, aren't I?" "Because Denise sent you." He pushed away from the counter. "Can we not turn this into some huge dramatic thing? Who is being dramatic?" "You left without saying goodbye." "I told Tessa I was leaving. You were standing beside her. I was dealing with my in-laws." "Yes, you were very busy with them." "There. That." He pointed at me as if he had caught a leak. "That tone you've had since we arrived." I folded my hands on the table. "You looked directly at me and walked past." He blinked once. "What?" "When you arrived. I was standing in front of you. I held my arms out and you walked past me. That is not what happened." "What happened?" "We came in. Uncle Calvin grabbed us. There were 1,000,000 people. Calvin was 6 feet behind me. So I didn't hug you in the first 30 seconds. I'm sorry. Is that what you want?" "No." "What do you want then?" "I want to know why you introduced Tessa's parents to Lee." "Who?" "The man who drank 4 of Calvin's beers without being invited. I didn't know he wasn't family. You introduced them to him, but not to me." His face changed very slightly, which was how I knew I had reached the part he had hoped I would avoid. "They know who you are," he said. "Do they?" "Obviously. Your father-in-law thought I was Calvin's sister." "You are Calvin's sister." I told him I was your mother. He knew that. He said, "Oh." "That's just how Graham talks. Your mother-in-law asked me for napkins because you were standing by the food. You were holding them." Marcus looked toward the coffee maker, though the pot was still mostly empty. "I don't understand what you think I did. I think you made me invisible." His shoulders dropped. "Not in surrender, in impatience." "Ma, everything is not a statement." "No. Sometimes walking past a person is simply walking past them. But you did it over and over. I was trying to make sure Graham and Louise were comfortable. I made sure they were comfortable. I moved tables. I changed the meal time. I bought the water you asked for. I wrote down what they ate. And I thanked you." "When?" "I thanked you on the phone. In private." He stared at me. There it was, small but visible. I stood. "You thanked Calvin in front of everybody for a reunion he barely helps with. You thanked Denise for keeping traditions alive. Then you handed me a phone so I could take the family picture. Tessa handed you the phone. You told them there wasn't time for me to get into the picture. That's not what I said. You said they needed to get on the road. They did. They were going 15 minutes to a hotel. How do you know where they were staying? Because I asked them questions. That shut him up for half a breath." The coffee began dripping steadily into the pot. Its smell filled the kitchen, warm and familiar, making the room feel friendlier than either of us deserved. Marcus pulled out a chair but did not sit. "Look, yesterday was complicated." "Why?" It just was. Try again. 2 families meeting, people with different backgrounds. What is wrong with my background? I didn't say anything was wrong with it. You didn't say anything at all. That is the problem. He rubbed both hands over his face. I recognized the gesture. Leonard used to do it when he knew the truth would cost more than the lie, but had not yet accepted the price. I didn't want Graham and Louise getting the wrong impression, Marcus said. Of whom? Of the situation. What situation? Our family. I waited. He walked to the window above the sink. In the yard, a squirrel was hanging upside down from the bird feeder, committing theft with confidence. Marcus. He let out a long breath. They think you and I aren't that close. For a moment, the sentence did not hurt. It was too oddly shaped to enter me. Why would they think that? Because that's what I told them. The coffee maker clicked off. Neither of us moved. When? I asked. A long time ago. How long? When Tessa and I were having problems before the wedding. My voice sounded distant. You told her parents you weren't close to me? It came up. How does that come up? They were asking why I was spending so much time here. That almost made me smile, not from humor, from the clean ugliness of it. During those months, Marcus had arrived at my house 3 or 4 nights a week. Sometimes he talked. Sometimes he slept in the spare room because he and Tessa had argued, and he did not trust himself to go home without making things worse. I had cooked for him, listened to him, and refused to tell him Tessa was the villain when he wanted me to. You were spending time here, I said, because you needed me. I know. Do you? I was under a lot of pressure. So you told them I was distant. I said we had a complicated relationship. You said we weren't close. I don't remember the exact words. Louise did. His head turned sharply. What did she say to you? Nothing. That's the point. She behaved like she had been told to keep her distance. You're reading into it. Then correct me. He looked away. I could see the lie he had built, not as one grand invention, but as a row of small, convenient omissions. Every time he came to my house, every time he called, every favor he asked, he had another chance to tell them the truth. Instead, he kept accepting my love in rooms where no one else could see it. Why didn't you correct them yesterday? I asked. I didn't know how without making it awkward. I stood across from him in my old robe with the coffee he had made himself between us. You decided I should carry the awkwardness for you. That's not fair. No, I said. It wasn't. Marcus pulled the green mug from the cupboard and poured coffee into it, although neither of us had offered the other any. You always do that, he said. Do what? Take one thing somebody says and sharpen it until it cuts everybody. I repeated your words. No, you took the worst possible version. What is the better version of telling people you aren't close to your mother while sleeping in her spare room? He took a drink too quickly and burned his mouth. I knew because his left eye watered. He pretended it hadn't. We were fighting then, he said. You and Tessa were fighting. You and I were too. That was true, though not in the way he wanted it to be. Marcus had come to me furious after Tessa asked him to move out for a week. He wanted me to agree that she was cold, controlling, and ungrateful. Instead, I asked whether he had apologized for making a decision that affected both of them without speaking to her. He accused me of taking her side. I wouldn't tell you what you wanted to hear, I said. You acted like everything was my fault. I said you had a fault, singular. At first. His mouth almost twitched, but he refused the laugh. You don't know what it's like, he said. Tessa's family doesn't operate like ours. How do they operate? They don't get into everything. They asked why you were spending nights here, because they were concerned about their daughter. So they get into things with better posture. See? That's exactly what I mean. I leaned against the table. No, what you mean is that you lied because the truth embarrassed you. I did not lie. Were we close? He stared into his coffee. Marcus. Yes. Then what did you call it? I didn't plan it. Graham asked if we were close, and I said not especially. I was angry. Not especially, I repeated. He looked up. It was one conversation. And yesterday? What about yesterday? You had an entire afternoon to correct one conversation. He pushed the chair back with his knee. I told you I didn't want to make it weird. You made it weird when you introduced your mother-in-law to a neighbor and skipped your mother. I didn't skip you on purpose. Then why didn't you say, "This is my mother," when Louise asked for napkins? Because Graham called her. Why didn't you include me in the photograph? That wasn't my decision. It became your decision when Denise said my name. He paced 2 steps toward the living room and back. My kitchen was too small for a proper argument. Leonard and I had discovered that years ago. There was nowhere to storm without ending up near the toaster. This is getting blown completely out of proportion, Marcus said. By whom? You. Aunt Denise. Probably Uncle Calvin by now. Calvin offered to be rude to you. He doesn't need an occasion. That's what I told him. Marcus gave me a tired look, and for an instant we were almost aligned. That was the danger of loving someone for 42 years. Even in the middle of a wound, you remembered where the jokes lived. He sat down. I'm sorry you felt ignored, he said. I looked at him for a long time. He seemed sincere. That was the terrible part. He genuinely believed he had apologized. I don't accept that, I said. His face hardened. What do you want me to say? That you ignored me? I didn't. Then we're done. We're not done. You're just refusing to hear me. I heard everything. You were angry with me years ago, so you told Tessa's parents we weren't close. You kept that story because correcting it might make you look dependent. Yesterday, you protected that story by treating me like a stranger. He stood again. You've decided my motivation. Why do I even need to be here? You're right. You don't. The silence after that was different. We had argued before. Marcus had slammed doors as a young man, gone 3 days without calling, once returned a birthday check because I had written a note suggesting he save it, but I had never asked him to leave my house. He glanced toward the foil tray on the counter. I brought you dessert, and that was thoughtful. His eyes flashed. Don't. Don't what? Talk to me like I'm some delivery person. I felt the words land in both of us. He saw it too. For the first time that morning, he looked ashamed. I walked to the front door and opened it. Ma, you don't get to come here for comfort, coffee, advice, help, a place to sleep, and all the small things you don't even notice I do, then make me disappear when my existence complicates the story you tell about yourself. That is not what I'm doing. It is exactly what you've done. What, so now I can't come over? You can come over when you want to see me. I came to see you today. Denise sent you. I still came, with leftovers and an argument about my tone. He held my eyes from across the room. I did not raise my voice. I almost wished I could. Anger would have been warmer. I will not be your mother in private and a complication in public, I said. You have to choose one relationship with me. His expression went still. That sounds like an ultimatum. It's a boundary. It sounds like a punishment. It will probably feel like one. Boundaries often do to the person who is comfortable without them. He gave a short, disbelieving laugh. Did you read that on a mug? No. The mug would say it more nicely. I don't even know what you're asking me to do. I'm not asking you to do anything today. Then what does this mean? It means I'm going to stop doing the private part for you. What private part? I could have listed everything. The late calls, the groceries, the edited emails he sent me before work, the shirts I mended even though he could afford new ones, the way I remembered appointments he pretended not to be nervous about, the spare key he had used so often that he sometimes forgot to knock. But naming those things would turn care into an invoice, and I had loved him freely when I gave it. You'll notice, I said, that's incredibly manipulative. Then it should be a relief when I stop. He set the green mug in the sink. Coffee sloshed over the rim. You're really doing this over one bad afternoon? No? You're only seeing the afternoon because you don't want to look at what held it up. He walked toward the door. At the threshold, he turned as if waiting for me to soften. Usually, I did. I could feel the old machinery beginning inside me. ask whether he had eaten, pack the dessert for him, touch his arm so he would know the door was only symbolic. I held the edge of the door. Marcus nodded once, a hard little motion. "Fine," he said. Then he left. His car stayed at the curb for almost 2 minutes before he drove away. The foil tray remained on my counter. When I finally opened it, the plastic wrap was fogged with moisture. Denise had packed 3 kinds of cobbler and a narrow slice of lemon pie. A note was tucked beneath the tray. "Call me Evie." "I mean it," I called. She answered on the first ring. What did he say? "Good morning to you too. I've been awake since 6 waiting." "For what?" "For you to stop pretending you're fine." I sat at the kitchen table again. Marcus's coffee cooled in the sink. He told Tessa's parents we weren't close. Denise went silent. I had known her 29 years. Silence was not her natural condition. Why would he tell them that? He was angry with me. When? Before the wedding. That was 3 years ago. Yes. And he just left it sitting there? Apparently it matched the furniture. What does Tessa think? I don't know. Well, she knows something. She looked ready to strangle him during the picture. I pressed 2 fingers to my forehead. The headache I had invented the day before was becoming real. "Please don't call him," I said. "I wasn't going to. You were already looking for his number. I know his number." "Denise, all right, I won't call." "Calvin might." "Tell Calvin not to." "You know I can't tell Calvin anything. He's a property owner now." I laughed, and then without warning, my eyes filled. Denise heard the change in my breathing. "Oh, Evie, I'm all right." "No, you're not. I will be. Do you want me to come over?" I looked at the blue dress hanging on the chair, the gray lint still stuck where the name tag had been. "Not yet." "All right. And Denise? Yeah? I'm not doing the reunion next year." Another silence. This one had weight. "You don't have to decide that today. I decided it yesterday. You love that reunion. I love the people. You love making those lists." "I do not love the lists. You use 3 colors. That is because people don't answer their phones." She sighed. "Calvin can't organize it. Calvin can learn. He put the potato salad in the freezer last year. Then next year it will be cold." "Evelyn." I got up and went to the narrow desk in the dining room. The reunion binder sat on top, thick with plastic sleeves, maps, old menus, phone numbers, and notes about who no longer wanted to be seated together. The red cover had faded pink along the spine. "I'll bring you the binder," I said. "I don't want the binder. Neither do I. You're angry right now." "Yes." "Maybe wait a week. If I wait a week, everybody will need something, and I'll do it because I always do. Then next summer, Marcus will arrive, and Calvin will take credit for the ribs, and I'll be standing behind a table making sure people who don't know me have the right water. That's not fair. To whom? To me, for one." I closed my eyes. She was right. My decision would not inconvenience only Marcus. Denise would inherit work she had never agreed to do. Calvin would fail at tasks I had made look effortless. Relatives who had nothing to do with my humiliation would lose a tradition I helped sustain. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'll help you transfer everything. I'll explain the lists. That isn't what I meant." "I know." "Then don't do this." "I have to." "Why?" "Because the reunion no longer felt like proof that I belonged. Because I had spent years making a place for every person who arrived and discovered my own place could be removed in an afternoon. Because if I organized it again, Marcus would learn that nothing had changed except the amount of time required for me to forgive him. "I need to find out whether anybody wants me there when I'm not useful," I said. Denise's voice softened. "I do. Then invite me next year." After we hung up, I took the small brass key to Calvin's storage room off my key ring. It did not want to come loose. The metal ring caught beneath my thumbnail, and I had to twist until it hurt. When the key finally came free, it looked too small to have opened so much. The key sat on my dining table until Tuesday. I moved around it for 2 days as if it were a dead insect I expected someone else to remove. I carried the reunion binder downstairs, set it beside the key, then walked past both every time I went to the kitchen. Marcus did not call. Sunday afternoon had been the worst. He usually called sometime between 4 and 6, often while driving home from errands. Our conversations were rarely important. He told me what he paid for gas. I told him which neighbor had put out a trash can too early. Once, we spent 15 minutes discussing whether an object he had seen beside the highway was a rolled carpet or a dead animal. At 4, I made tea. At 5, I carried my phone into the bathroom while I cleaned the sink. At 6, I turned the ringer off and resented him for obeying me. By Tuesday, the red binder had begun to feel accusatory. I put it in a canvas grocery bag, added the key in an envelope marked storage, and drove to Calvin's. He was in the tool shed wearing protective goggles on top of his head and holding a paintbrush with no paint on it. "What are you doing?" I asked, getting ready to seal the workbench. "With air? I'm thinking. You need goggles for that? They're convenient." He looked at the grocery bag in my hand and stopped smiling. "Denise is inside," he said. "I came to see both of you." "Well, I'm busy. You're holding a dry brush. I'm about to get busy." "Calvin." He set the brush down and followed me to the house. Denise was at the kitchen island cutting the crusts off a sandwich. She looked at the bag, then at me. "No," she said. "I brought the lists. I told you I don't want them." Calvin pulled out a stool. "Let's all sit down." "You've been talking to her," I said. "She's been talking to me," he corrected. "For 2 days," Denise said, "because you told us not to call Marcus, and apparently we needed a substitute victim." Calvin ignored that. "I've given the situation some thought." "With goggles," I said. He sat straighter. "This is between you and your son. The reunion is not between me and Marcus." "Exactly. Which is why you shouldn't quit it because he acted like a jackass." Denise slapped the flat of her knife against the cutting board. "You were supposed to say insensitive. I said I'd try. Jackass is accurate," I said. Calvin nodded gratefully. "Thank you. But I'm still done." Denise pushed the sandwich toward me. "Eat." "I'm not hungry." "You're always hungry when you say that." The crusts had been removed because she claimed they made her jaw tired, although I had seen her chew ice. I took half the sandwich. Calvin leaned both forearms on the island. "You know, everybody counts on you." "Yes, you enjoy being counted on." "Yes, and you're good at it." I waited. He tapped a finger against the counter. "So this doesn't make sense." "It makes perfect sense. You just don't like it." "You want the reunion canceled?" "No. Then who's going to do it?" "You." He laughed once, expecting me to join him. When I didn't, he looked at Denise. She shook her head. "Don't look at me." "This is your house," I said. "It's our property," Calvin said automatically. Denise closed her eyes. "Then it's your reunion," I said. "It's the family reunion." "Wonderful. You have a family. Delegate." Calvin reached into the bag and pulled out the binder. He opened it carefully as if a live bird might escape. The first page was a timeline beginning 8 weeks before the reunion. He read the headings aloud. Confirm date, check canopy, call rental company. Why do we call a rental company? For extra tables and chairs. We own tables. You own 4. We had more than 4. Those were rentals. He turned a page. What's dietary matrix? Pamela says gluten gives her headaches. Howard claims he's pre-diabetic. Raymond's girlfriend is vegan, and Lee will eat anything because he isn't invited. Raymond and Carla broke up, Denise said. I know. Her name is crossed out. Calvin flipped back. Why is Pamela listed under peach cobbler if she can't eat gluten? She forgets her allergy around dessert. He closed the binder. This is obsessive. Then you won't need it. I reached for the bag. He put one hand on the binder. I didn't say that. You implied it. I'm trying to understand why one meal needs a military operation. Because when it doesn't, you call me from the kitchen and ask where the mustard is. I found it. After opening a refrigerator with a map on it. There was no map. I told you I was joking about the map. Then you can't use the map against me. Denise leaned over the counter, laughing despite herself. Calvin's mouth twitched. He fought it, then lost. For a moment, the binder was just a binder, and the reunion was a familiar inconvenience. I could feel myself wanting to say I would help a little. I could make the initial calls. I could order the chairs. I could handle food but leave setup to them. That was how my responsibilities had grown in the first place, not through one grand request. Through little gaps I could not bear to leave open. I took the key envelope from the bag and placed it on the binder. Calvin stopped laughing. "You're serious," he said. "Yes." He picked up the envelope but did not open it. "Evie, I'm not Marcus. I know. So why are you taking this from me? I'm not taking anything. I've run your reunion for 17 years. Our reunion. Then run it with me gone." He sat back. The hurt on his face surprised me. Calvin and I loved each other sideways through insults and tasks. He was the person I called when a tree limb fell across my driveway. I was the person who knew he had started checking his blood pressure twice a day after Howard's heart scare, though he told everyone the cuff belonged to Denise. "You think I don't want you there?" he asked. "I think you want everything I do there." "That's not the same thing." "No, it isn't." His expression hardened. "Nobody asked you to take over all of it." Denise went still. "There are sentences families keep polished for emergencies. Nobody asked you was ours. It could turn years of freely given work into a private mistake." I nodded. "You're right," I said. "That's why you don't need my permission to stop me." I left the binder and walked out. Denise caught up near my car. "He didn't mean it." "He did. He meant it badly." "That doesn't improve it." She stood between me and the driver's door. "He's scared. Of a binder? Of disappointing everybody. Then he finally understands the job. That's not fair either." "No, it isn't." Denise wrapped her arms around herself. The yard was still marked from the reunion. 2 flattened patches showed where the rented tables had stood. Near the maple tree, a paper cup rolled in the breeze and caught against a root. "I don't want to do this without you," she said. "I know. I'm angry with you. I know that, too. You make these decisions quietly, and then the rest of us have to discover they're permanent. The accusation was not wrong. I had always considered calmness a kindness. Leonard used to say I could close a door so gently a person would not realize they were locked out until they tried the handle. I don't know if it's permanent," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "That sounds like hope. It's uncertainty. Don't decorate it." She touched the sleeve of my blouse. "Come to dinner Friday." "Will Calvin be there?" "It's his house. Property. Don't start." "I'll come." "And if I ask you one question about the chair rental?" "I'll leave." "One tiny question?" "Goodbye, Denise." She stepped away from the door, muttering that I was impossible. I drove home without the binder. The empty passenger seat felt less like freedom than forgetting something at the store. My phone rang as I turned onto my street. Pamela. I considered not answering, but Pamela called only when she had information or believed she did. "Evelyn," she said, stretching my name until it had 3 extra syllables. "I hear you're canceling the reunion." "I am not." That's what Raymond said. "How would Raymond know?" Denise told Carla. "Raymond and Carla broke up. They still share a streaming password." I pulled into my driveway. "The reunion is not canceled. I'm simply not organizing it." "Well, that amounts to the same thing, doesn't it?" "No. Calvin can't manage all that. He owns goggles." "What?" "Nothing." Pamela lowered her voice. "Is this because Marcus forgot to put you in that picture?" "He didn't forget." "Oh." I could hear her rearranging the story in her head, making room for discomfort. "I thought maybe there wasn't time," she said. "There was time." "Well, families get strange when in-laws are around. Families are strange without them." "That's true." A pause followed. Pamela disliked silence and usually filled it with danger. "You know what people are saying," she began. "No, that you're punishing everybody because you're upset with Marcus." Are you people? I'm calling because I care about you. Then ask how I am. She went quiet. I waited. Finally, she said, How are you? Not good. The honesty startled both of us. Oh, honey, I'm tired, Pamela. Then rest. Nobody says you have to do everything. I nearly laughed. That is exactly what Calvin said. Well, he's right about that part. And when I stop? She hesitated. We'll figure it out, she said. Good. But you'll still make the peach cobbler, won't you? There it was. I looked through my windshield at my front porch. The fern hanging near the door had turned brown on one side because I always forgot to rotate it. No, I said, but I'll bring something from Food Lion. Pamela gasped theatrically. Now you're being cruel. This time I laughed. After we hung up, I sat in the car for a while. I had expected setting a boundary to feel clean. Instead, every relationship seemed attached to it by a different string. Pull one, and somebody else's chair moved. Inside, the foil tray was still on the counter. I divided the cobbler into containers and put 2 in the freezer. The lemon pie had gone soft, but I ate it anyway. Marcus's green mug remained in the sink. I washed it, dried it, and put it back in the cupboard. Then I saw the key on the counter. Not Calvin's storage key. A silver one, worn smooth at the edges. Marcus's spare key to my house. He must have taken it off his ring before leaving and set it down without telling me. I picked it up and held it in my palm. He had understood the boundary as rejection. Maybe that was easier for him than understanding it as a door he would now have to approach honestly. The bell rang. When I opened the front door, Tessa stood on the porch in navy pants and a white blouse, looking as if she had come directly from work. She glanced at the key in my hand. So, she said, I guess this is worse than Marcus told me. I didn't ask him to give it back, I said. Tessa looked at the key again. He said you didn't want him coming here. I said he should come when he wants to see me. What does that mean? It means exactly what it sounds like. With you, that's not always comforting. There was enough truth in that to let her in. She walked past me carrying a large leather handbag and the clean, sharp smell of some perfume I could never have afforded and would not have known where to wear. In the living room, she sat on the edge of the sofa without removing the bag from her shoulder. Would you like coffee? No, thank you. Water? No. An olive spread you apparently like? She blinked. What? Nothing. I sat across from her. Tessa looked toward the dining room where the blue dress still hung over the chair. I had intended to clean it that morning. Then I had intended to clean it after lunch. By late afternoon, it had begun to feel like evidence. Marcus says you've decided he's ashamed of you, she said. Did he tell you why? He said there was confusion at the reunion. There wasn't. He also said you brought up something he told my parents years ago. That part is true. She shifted the handbag onto her lap. You know, he's been trying very hard to build a relationship with them. I'm glad. They live 9 hours away. My mother spent almost 2 years caring for her sister before she died. That's why they missed our wedding, and every time we tried to arrange a visit after that, something happened. I know. Do you? Marcus told me when your aunt died. I sent a card. Tessa looked surprised. Through Marcus, I added. Her expression changed from surprise to suspicion. My mother never mentioned it. Maybe he forgot to give it to her. Maybe. Neither of us believed that was the only possibility. She crossed one ankle over the other. My parents were nervous about the reunion. Marcus wanted them to feel included. That's all he was trying to do. He succeeded. And you think he shouldn't have? I think including them did not require excluding me. You weren't excluded. You were there. Furniture is there. Tessa exhaled and looked toward the window. This is what he meant. What did he mean? That you turn everything into a test. I did not test him. I held my arms out to hug my son. He didn't see you. He told you that? He said there were people everywhere. There were. He introduced your parents to all of them. Not all of them. You're right. He missed the woman selling raffle tickets because we didn't have a raffle. Her mouth tightened. I should have stopped. Humor had always been my favorite sharp object. Leonard used to tell me I could make a person laugh while removing a limb. Tessa stood. I knew coming here was a mistake. Then why did you? Because Marcus has barely spoken since Sunday. He came home angry, then he slept on the couch, and this morning I found your key on the dresser. He said you told him he could no longer come here. He left the key in my kitchen. I found it after he was gone. She looked at the silver key in my palm as if it had changed shape. He said you gave it back to him? He did not say that. He let me think it. That sounds familiar. Tessa's face flushed. Don't use me to make your point. I'm not. Yes, you are. You want me to admit Marcus is some kind of liar. I want to know what story you came here to defend. She stared at me. The room was very quiet. Somewhere outside, a landscaping crew started a leaf blower, though it was July and no leaves had fallen. Tessa lowered herself onto the sofa again, but this time she set her handbag on the floor. He told me the two of you had a difficult relationship, she said. We've had difficult times. He said you didn't approve of me. I barely knew you. That doesn't stop mothers. No, it doesn't. He said whenever we had problems, you encouraged him to protect himself. From what? From me. I felt anger rise, but not toward her. What did protecting himself mean? Keeping his finances separate, not making decisions too quickly, making sure he had somewhere else to stay. He had somewhere else to stay because I have a spare room. He made it sound like you kept it ready in case our marriage failed. I put clean sheets on a bed. To him, that probably felt like a plan. He arrived carrying an overnight bag, Tessa, more than once. Her gaze lifted sharply. You knew he stayed here, I said. I knew he came here to cool off. He told me he slept at a hotel. There are moments when another person's pain is so close to your own that you have to decide whether to use it. The cruelest part of me wanted to ask how it felt to discover Marcus had made her invisible too. I kept that question inside. He slept here, I said. 6 nights the first time. 2 the next. Once for a single night after you argued about Thanksgiving. Tessa looked down at her hands. He called me from a parking lot that night, I continued. He said he was too angry to drive home. I told him to calm down and go back to you. He said he needed sleep. I let him in. You never called me, no. Why? He asked me not to. And you just did what he asked. He was my son and he was upset. I'm his wife. I know. Did you? Because it sounds like the two of you had a whole version of my marriage that I wasn't in. The words struck cleanly. I could have defended myself. I could have said I never encouraged him to leave her, never insulted her, never asked for details he did not volunteer. All of that was true. It was also true that I had accepted a role that kept me important. When Marcus arrived wounded, I became the person who understood him best. I told myself I was preserving his confidence. Perhaps sometimes I was helping him avoid the person he owed honesty to. You're right, I said. Tessa looked up. I should have told him I would not be a hiding place, I said. I should have pushed him back toward you sooner. Her anger faltered, denied the argument it had prepared for. But I did not tell him to protect himself from you, I added. I told him he had made a decision that affected both of you without asking. I told him you were right to be angry. What decision? I assumed you knew. No. Apparently, there are many things I know in theory. I did not answer. It was not my confession to make. She rubbed her thumb over the small diamond in her wedding band. He said you took his side. He was angry because I didn't. Tessa laughed once, without humor. That's almost impressive. Yes, he told my parents you weren't close because he was angry with you. That's what he told me. And he never corrected it? No. Why didn't you correct them at the reunion? I met them beside a box of napkins. I didn't realize I needed to present evidence. You could have said something during lunch. What should I have said? These ribs were smoked by a woman your son-in-law claims not to need? Despite herself, Tessa smiled. It vanished quickly. I thought you were being cold to them, she said. Marcus said you might be. I moved the table for your mother. I know. I bought the water. I know that too. Did he tell you before or after you arrived? After. When I asked why there were glass bottles in the cooler, she leaned back as if reviewing the afternoon from a different chair. I told you the shade was a lot for him, she said. I remember. I thought maybe seeing me with my parents was difficult for you. He said you struggled when attention wasn't centered on your side of the family. I absorbed that. Did he give an example? No. He just said you could be sensitive. Sensitive is a very useful word. It means the other person has feelings you would prefer not to discuss. He was worried you'd create tension, so he created it first. Tessa's eyes returned to the blue dress. When you held the phone, she said, I knew something was wrong. Denise said my name. And he looked at me. Why? Because I was the one who asked you to take the picture. Did you know I wasn't meant to be in it? No. Her answer came fast, and I believed it. I thought you'd take one, then we'd switch. But when Denise said you should get in, Marcus said my parents had to leave. I didn't understand why he did that. Did you ask him? On the drive to the hotel. What did he say? That you hated photographs. I stared at her. Tessa gave a small, tired shrug. Do you? Yes, but that is not the same as hating being asked. She nodded. We sat with that distinction. After a while, I went to the kitchen and made coffee. Tessa accepted a cup this time. I put half and half in hers, and she looked surprised again. Marcus told me, I said. Of course he did. It was the first thing we shared that did not feel like a weapon. She took one sip and set the cup down. What happens now? She asked. That depends on Marcus. You told him he had to choose. I told him he could not have one mother in private and another in public. That sounds like choosing. Only if honesty and distance are the two options. He thinks you want him to humiliate himself in front of my parents. I want him to tell the truth. What truth? That he needs people. That he needed me. That our relationship mattered even when he was angry. Tessa looked toward the kitchen doorway. He is terrified of needing anyone, she said. I know. No, I don't think you do. With you, he can be needy because you will never leave. With me, he thinks every need is evidence I made a bad choice. I didn't know that. Neither did I until about 5 minutes ago. She picked up her handbag. I came here to tell you not to force him to choose between families, she said. Now I think he's been making everyone choose between versions of him. I walked her to the door. On the porch, she turned. Don't call him tonight. I wasn't planning to. I need to talk to him before he has time to explain this into something else. There was no warmth in her request, but there was trust, thin and newly formed. I nodded. She reached her car, then looked back. And Evelyn? Yes? My mother doesn't dislike you. She doesn't know me. I'm beginning to think that was the point. After she drove away, I returned to the living room. Her coffee cup sat beside the sofa, half full. For once, I left it there. The coffee developed a pale skin overnight. I found it the next morning when I came downstairs, still on the table beside the sofa. Leaving it there had felt bold at the time. In daylight, it looked like I had forgotten how cups worked. I poured it out and washed the mug. Tessa did not call. At 10:30, she sent 3 words. We talked. Thanks. The message had no punctuation. I spent an unreasonable amount of time deciding whether that made it calmer or more dangerous. I answered, I'm here if you need me. Then I deleted it. She had not asked me to be there. I was beginning to notice how quickly I volunteered for jobs no one had posted. I wrote, I hope you're okay. That sounded dishonest. I did not think she was okay. In the end, I sent nothing. At noon, a florist delivered a wide glass vase full of white roses. The delivery man was young enough to call me ma'am with fear in his eyes. He held the vase away from his body as if the flowers might explode. Evelyn Carter? Yes. Sign here. The card was sealed in a small cream envelope. Love you always. Marcus. That was all. No mention of the reunion, no mention of what he had said about me. No acknowledgement that his wife now knew he had lied about sleeping at a hotel. Love you always was true, probably. It was also beside the point. I carried the roses inside. They were beautiful. That annoyed me. If they had been limp or dyed blue, I could have disliked them honestly. Instead, they opened across my dining table with the confidence of flowers that had cost too much. Denise called before I finished trimming the stems. "Did you get flowers?" "How do you know?" Marcus called Calvin. "What did he want?" "To ask whether you liked roses." I looked at the vase. After 42 years, he had to ask Calvin? Calvin told him you liked yellow. I do. They didn't have yellow. They grow in that color. That's what I said. I pinched a bruised outer petal from one of the blooms. "Did Marcus say anything else?" "He asked if we thought you were serious about not organizing next year." "Interesting." Calvin said yes. "What did you say?" I told him I was staying out of it. "You're calling me with a report. I'm staying just outside of it." I smiled despite myself. Denise lowered her voice. "Did Tessa come over yesterday?" "Yes, I knew it." "How?" "She called me." "When?" "Before she went to you. She asked whether Marcus ignored you on purpose." "What did you tell her?" "That I don't know what lives inside that man's head, but I watched him avoid saying your name for 4 hours. It was not 4 hours. It felt like 4 hours. Did she tell you why she was asking?" "No. She sounded mad enough to break something expensive, though." I looked toward the white roses. "She and Marcus have been telling each other different stories," I said. "That sounds healthy. Apparently, he told her he stayed in hotels when he was here." Denise went quiet. "I'm not asking you to get involved," I added. "I'm already just outside. Move farther." "I don't like this, Evie. Neither do I." "What are you going to do about the flowers?" "Keep them." "The flowers didn't do anything. Are you going to thank him?" I ran my thumb over the edge of the card. "I don't know." After we hung up, I texted Marcus. "The roses arrived." He answered immediately. "Good, I hope you like them." I waited. No second message came. I typed 3 different responses. "Thank you" sounded like acceptance. "We still need to talk" sounded like an invitation to repeat Monday. "White is not yellow" sounded like surrendering to our old language of teasing. I set the phone down without replying. The doorbell rang just before 3. This time, Louise Whitmore stood on my porch. She held a blue ceramic casserole dish with both hands. The dish had a white chip along one handle, where Leonard once dropped it in the sink. I had packed macaroni into it for the Whitmores before leaving the reunion and asked Denise to send it with them. I had forgotten all about it. "Hello," Louise said. "Hello. Tessa gave me your address. I hope that's all right." "Of course. I wanted to return this before Graham and I drive home tomorrow." She held out the dish. "You could have kept it." "I know. That's why I brought it back." There was a dry humor in her voice I had not heard at the reunion. I took the dish. It was heavier than it should have been. "Is there something in here?" "Coffee cake. I don't return dishes empty." "Neither do I." I suspected that. We stood facing each other with the screen door between us. "Would you like to come in?" I asked. "Yes, thank you." She entered and looked toward the dining room. Her gaze stopped on the roses, then moved to the cream card lying beside them. She did not ask. "Coffee?" I said. "If it isn't trouble." "I make it several times a day, whether anyone wants it or not. Then I'll help justify the habit." In the kitchen, Louise sat at the same place Tessa had occupied. I put the coffee cake on a plate. It was neatly made with a cinnamon ribbon through the center and walnuts pressed into the topping. "You made this?" "I did. Pamela would find you threatening." "The woman with the lemon pie?" "The purchased lemon pie." "Ah." I poured coffee. Louise took hers black. For a few minutes we discussed the drive, road construction, and whether GPS systems deliberately waited until the last possible second to mention exits. It was the kind of conversation we should have had under the maple tree. Then she placed both hands around her cup. "I owe you an apology," she said. "You asked for napkins. I've recovered. I'm not apologizing for the napkins." "What are you apologizing for? For believing it was more polite not to approach you?" I sat across from her. "Marcus said you preferred distance," she continued. "Not only from him, from his marriage, from Tessa's family." "When did he say that? The first time they planned to marry?" I waited. Louise looked down into her coffee. "We asked whether we should contact you. The wedding was arranged quickly, and I couldn't travel then, but I thought at least we should speak by phone. Marcus said you were private, and that involving you would make you uncomfortable. He told me you were overwhelmed caring for your sister." I was. Both things can be true. "I sent you a card after she died." Her eyes lifted. "Tessa mentioned that last night. So you didn't receive it?" "No." I nodded. Louise's grief passed across her face quietly. "My sister's name was Anne. I'm sorry. She had a talent for making terrible situations more complicated, even dying. She refused every sensible arrangement and then complained that no one had made arrangements. She sounds interesting. She was exhausting." Louise smiled. "I miss her every day." There was affection in the complaint. I understood that language. "I'm sorry you carried that while Tessa was getting married," I said. "Thank you." She reached for the coffee cake, broke off one walnut, and ate it. "I thought perhaps you disliked us before meeting us," she said. "I didn't know enough to dislike you efficiently. That's fair. Marcus told me the delay was distance, schedules, and your family situation. Those were reasons, but he also discouraged it. Every time Tessa suggested we visit, there was some concern about overwhelming you." I glanced toward the dining room. The roses were visible through the doorway, white against the dark wood. "Did you believe him?" I asked. "Yes." The answer was immediate, without self-protection. "He was careful," Louise said. "He never insulted you. That would have made me suspicious. He described you as independent, reserved, someone who had her own life and did not want an intrusive relationship. I am independent. I can see that. I'm not reserved. I've begun to suspect that." I smiled. At the reunion, she continued, "I assumed you had agreed to some arrangement where we would be cordial but not familiar. When Marcus did not introduce us, I thought he was honoring your wishes. That was not my wish. I understand now. Did Tessa tell you?" "Only that Marcus had not been honest about the relationship. She did not give me details. I came because I wanted to hear from you. I appreciated that more than I expected." Louise looked toward the vase again. "Graham likes Marcus very much. I do too. He sees a younger version of himself in him. That may be less encouraging than you intend. It isn't entirely a compliment." I waited. "Graham spent years believing competence meant never admitting uncertainty," she said. "It made him successful at work and almost impossible at home. When his mother became ill, he hid how frightened he was until the strain came out as anger. Marcus has the same instinct. He wants people to witness the finished result, never the need that produced it. I thought of Marcus in my spare room, sitting on the edge of the bed in yesterday's shirt, asking me whether Tessa still loved him. He can admit uncertainty to me," I said. "Yes, but not that he admits it." The sentence settled with painful precision. Louise finished her coffee and stood. "I don't expect you to forgive my part in Sunday," she said. "You did not know. I could have asked. So could I. You were busy. I'm always busy when I'm afraid of standing still." She studied me for a moment, then nodded as if I had confirmed something. At the door, she touched my arm. "I am glad to have met you properly, Evelyn." "So am I." After her car disappeared, I brought the blue dish into the kitchen. My phone lit up on the counter. Marcus had posted a photograph online. It was an old one of the two of us at my 60th birthday. His arm was around my shoulders. I was laughing at something outside the frame. The caption read, "The strongest woman I know. Love you, Mom." Comments were already appearing. Beautiful family. You're lucky to have each other. A son who honors his mother is a blessing. I looked at the smiling version of myself beneath his arm. Then I read his text. I hope you know I never meant to hurt you. The words were closer to an apology than the flowers, but still arranged around his intention instead of my experience. I typed, "Please take the post down." His reply came so quickly he must have been watching the screen. Why? Because this is exactly what I asked you to stop doing. I could see him typing. The dots appeared, vanished, returned. Finally, he wrote, "I'm trying." I looked at the roses, the photograph, and Louise's empty coffee cup. "Then try where I can hear you," I answered. "Not where everyone can see you." The post disappeared within a minute. The comments vanished with it, including 37 people's certainty that Marcus honored his mother. He called. I let it ring once before answering. "I took it down," he said. "I saw. Now everybody who noticed is going to think we had a fight." We did. Why does that need to be public? It doesn't. That was my point. He went quiet. I could hear traffic behind him and the rhythmic click of a turn signal. "Are you driving?" I asked. "Yes." "Then call me when you're not. I'm using the car system. That does not make the other cars imaginary. Ma, I'm trying to talk to you. You posted at me. I posted something nice. You posted something that made you look nice." That is such a cynical way to see it. Is it wrong? He did not answer. The turn signal continued clicking. Either he had been waiting a very long time to turn, or he was the person everyone hated on the highway. "Louise came to see me," I said. The clicking stopped. "What?" She returned my casserole dish. "You talked to her?" "She was in my house." Silence would have been awkward. "What did you tell her?" "The truth when she asked me questions." He exhaled sharply. "I can't believe this." "What part?" "Tessa goes over there, then Louise. Everybody's talking about me like I'm not in the room." I looked at the photograph still open on my phone. "You'll survive it." "That's not funny." "No." "What exactly did you say to Louise?" "That we are close. That I wanted to know her. That I sent a card when her sister died." He was silent for several seconds. "I forgot about the card," he said. "Did you?" "Yes." That time was chaos. It was addressed and stamped. All you had to do was put it in a mailbox. I said, "I forgot." "And I believe you." "You don't sound like it." "I believe you forgot because my relationship with them was not important to you." "That's not fair. You've worn that sentence out." Another car horn sounded through the phone. Marcus muttered something under his breath. "Pull over or call me later," I said. "I'm almost at the hotel." "Why are you going there?" "We're all having dinner before Graham and Louise leave. I hope you have a nice evening. You could come." The invitation came so quickly I knew it had just occurred to him. "No." "Why not?" "Because this is not a problem you solve by putting all the people you misled around one table and hoping the bread arrives quickly. They want to know you. Louise knows where I live. She feels terrible." She apologized. His voice sharpened. "Of course she did. What is that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. She's very good at apologizing for things that aren't her fault. She did not make your mistake smaller by acknowledging her part." "I've acknowledged it." "You sent flowers." I said, "I'm sorry." "You said you were sorry I felt ignored." "I am sorry you felt ignored." "I was ignored, Marcus." "You keep trying to make my pain a misunderstanding because that lets you remain well-intentioned. I'm not doing this while I'm driving." "Good." He hung up. The white roses lasted 9 days. That was longer than my anger stayed clean. Anger is easiest when the person who hurt you keeps talking. In silence, it tangles with missing them. I trimmed the stems twice. I changed the water. I removed each flower as it browned around the edges until 3 remained in the oversized vase, looking like guests who had stayed after everyone else left. Friday dinner at Calvin's was meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and a salad Denise had forgotten to dress. Calvin placed the bowl in front of me. "What is this?" I asked. "Salad." It's lettuce. There are tomatoes underneath. That sounds like a threat. He handed me a bottle of dressing. Improve it. I'm a guest. You know where the oil is. I know where my car is. Denise kicked him under the table. He jerked. What was that for? Hostility. She's the one threatening to leave over salad. I'm demonstrating boundaries, I said. Calvin got the oil himself. We made it through half the meal before anyone mentioned the reunion binder. It sat on a chair near the pantry, stuffed with yellow notes in Denise's handwriting. I called the rental company, she said. Good. They don't have next year's prices yet. They won't until January. The timeline says to call in July. The timeline says record this year's damage deposit return in July. She stared at me. Those are different? One gets money, the other spends it. Calvin pointed his fork at the binder. Why doesn't it say that? It does. In regular words? Yes. Not in one of your codes? I do not use codes. You wrote CDR, Chair Damage Return. That is a code. That is an abbreviation. It needs a legend. It has one. Denise covered her face. I ate a bite of meatloaf. I hate both of you, she said. Calvin lowered his fork. Fine. We're not talking about the binder. You brought it to the table, she said. It is on a chair. It's closer to the table than I am. I looked at them arguing over whether furniture could participate in a conversation and felt the old pull to take the whole thing back. I could have relieved them with one sentence. Instead, I ate my meatloaf. After dinner, Denise carried plates to the kitchen. Calvin stayed seated. I'm sorry, he said. For the meatloaf. It's a good meatloaf. It was dry. You had 2 slices. Apology withdrawn? He looked at his hands. For saying, nobody asked you. I waited. He rubbed one thumb across a scratch in the tabletop. You started doing all that because Mom got sick. Our mother had been 79 at the last reunion she attended. She spent most of the afternoon insisting everyone was speaking too softly, then accused Calvin of stealing her folding chair while she was sitting in it. After that year, I took over the calls she had once made and the food she had once organized. I started because it needed doing, I said, and I let you. Yes, I thought you liked it. I did. Then how was I supposed to know? You weren't. Until I stopped. He nodded reluctantly. Still feels like I'm being punished, he said. I know. And I don't like you making me run around trying to prove I want you there. Calvin, I believe you want me there. Then why did you say that thing about finding out whether anybody wants you when you're not useful? Wanting me and valuing me are not always the same. He frowned. That sounds like mug writing. Apparently, I have a future in kitchenware. He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. Calvin's hands were broad and rough, the nails permanently edged with dirt no matter how often he washed them. You're my sister, he said. You could sit in a chair and insult my food all day and I'd still want you here. That may be the nicest thing you've ever said to me. It is not. You signed my 60th birthday card, Regards. The card already said, Happy Birthday. I squeezed his fingers. From the kitchen, Denise called, If this is a touching moment, bring your plates with you when it's over. Calvin picked up the plates. Repair with him was that simple. Not easy, but simple. He had named the injury without asking me to rename it for him. Marcus kept circling his. The following Sunday, my phone rang at 4:42. I was in the backyard rotating the fern I had finally taken down from the porch. One side was full and green. The other looked like it had survived a fire. Marcus's name lit the screen. I answered. Hi, he said. Hi. A pause. What are you doing? He asked. Turning a plant. Why? Because it grew crooked. You're turning it? How? Slowly, Marcus. I'm not trying to surprise it. He laughed. The sound opened something in me before I could guard it. Did you eat? I asked. Yes. What? Food. That answer has never meant food. I got a sandwich. From where? Ma, I'm asking conversationally. I know. His voice softened. For several minutes, we managed ordinary things. He told me the air conditioner at his office was broken. I told him Calvin had discovered the reunion binder contained more than one page. He asked about the roses. I said 3 had survived. Then he went quiet. Tessa and I are having a hard time, he said. There it was. My body responded before my mind did. I moved toward the house, already imagining the kettle, the green mug, the spare room with its clean sheets. I stopped beside the back steps. I'm sorry, I said. She won't let this go. What is this? Everything. The hotel thing. What I told her parents. Now she's questioning every conversation we've ever had. That sounds painful. It's exhausting. I waited. He waited too. Usually I would fill that silence with a question. What happened? What did she say? Are you coming over? I looked at the fern in my hand. The damaged side faced me. Are you there? He asked. Yes. I don't know what she wants from me. Have you asked her? Obviously. What did she say? That I manage people's perception of me. I said nothing. You agree with her, he said. This isn't a vote. I called because I needed to talk. About us? About my life. Your marriage is a conversation you should have with your wife. Sometimes people need someone outside the marriage. Yes, you used to understand that. I used to make it too comfortable for you to stay outside. His breathing changed. So what? I can't talk to you when I'm struggling now? You can tell me you're struggling. I will care. But I will not help you turn Tessa into the problem when the problem is that you lied to her. I didn't call to have you lecture me. What did you call for? He did not answer. I sat on the back step, still holding the fern. Marcus, did you call because you wanted to know how I was, or because you needed the private mother again? That's a cruel question. It is an honest one. You know what? Forget it. I don't want to forget it. That's the whole problem. You never forget anything. He hung up. I remained on the step with the phone against my ear. The fern's dry fronds scratched my wrist. I wanted to call back. I wanted to tell him I loved him, that he could come over, that we would make coffee and sort through the mess until he could breathe again. Instead, I put the plant down and went inside alone. At 7, a text arrived. I'm sorry I hung up. I read it twice. Thank you, I wrote. Then, after a moment, I added, I love you. But I meant what I said. His answer came several minutes later. I know. It was not an apology for the reunion. It did not repair the lie or restore the relationship. But for the first time, he had reached the boundary and stopped pushing. I turned the fern so its green side faced the room and left the damaged side where it could still reach the light. The fern did not recover all at once. For several weeks, it looked worse. The brown fronds stayed brown, the green ones drooped, and every morning I turned the pot a quarter inch toward the window, like a woman attempting to negotiate with sunlight. Marcus called the next Sunday at 4:30. He asked about the plant. I told him it was considering whether to live. He told me the office air conditioning had been repaired but now sounded like an airplane preparing for takeoff. We discussed that for 6 minutes. He did not mention Tessa. I did not ask. The Sunday after that, he called at 5:12 and asked whether Calvin had figured out the chair rental. Calvin believes chairs are a conspiracy, I said. Why? He says people can bring their own. They already do. Some do. Some say they will and arrive holding nothing but coleslaw. That sounds like Pamela. Pamela brings pie. Food Lion brings pie. Pamela transports it. He laughed. We spoke for 11 minutes. I knew because I watched the clock after we hung up. Our conversations became careful, shallow things. We walked around the weather, household repairs, grocery prices, and whether the city had changed the traffic light near my pharmacy. Sometimes I could hear him reaching for something deeper, then stopping. I missed him during those calls almost more than I had when he did not call at all. Distance has an honesty to it. Polite closeness is harder. Tessa did not visit again, but she sent me a photograph of the coffee cake recipe Louise had written on an index card. Mom said you liked it. I answered, I did. Thank you. 3 days later, she asked whether my fern was still alive. I stared at that message long enough to realize Marcus had mentioned it to her. Despite everything, they were still talking about me in their house. I sent a picture of the plant's one new curled frond. Tessa replied with a green heart. That was the extent of our alliance. Neither of us wanted to turn the other into a witness against Marcus. We had both spent too long being handed selected facts. Without reunion tasks, my August felt strangely wide. I had not understood how early the work began. By then, I was usually updating addresses, checking supply prices, and calling relatives who claimed not to know whether they would be free the following July. Apparently, calendars became mysterious when commitment was involved. I cleaned a closet. I took 3 bags of Leonard's old clothes to a donation center and then cried in the parking lot over a brown jacket he had disliked. I let Denise talk me into a water aerobics class at the recreation center. She wore a flowered swim cap and insisted it was stylish. "You look like a sofa cushion," I told her. "You look like you lost a fight with a shower curtain." We were the youngest women in the class by at least 4 years and the least coordinated by 20. Afterward, we sat in her car eating crackers from a sleeve because exercise had made us ravenous. "I still hate the binder," she said. "You're not supposed to bring up the reunion on Tuesdays. It's in my house every day. Put it in a drawer. It doesn't fit. Calvin can build one? He's still sealing the workbench. Has he bought sealant? No. We ate 2 more crackers. Marcus called him," Denise said. I turned to her. "This morning. Asked what you wanted for your birthday. He knows when my birthday is. He wasn't asking when. I know what he was asking." "What did Calvin tell him?" "That you don't need things." "That is not an answer." I told him that. "He said you like plants." I looked out the windshield at the fern-green trees beyond the recreation center. "I already have a plant," I said. Denise handed me another cracker. My birthday arrived on a Thursday with a rainstorm and a card from the dentist reminding me I was due for x-rays. Calvin and Denise had planned dinner at their house. They said it would be small, which in our family meant fewer than 12 people. Pamela came. So did Raymond, without Carla, but still using her streaming password. Howard drove down and brought a bottle of wine he claimed was expensive, though the label was peeling off. Marcus and Tessa arrived together. I noticed because I was trying not to. Marcus carried a potted yellow orchid. Tessa carried a bakery box. "You have another plant to emotionally manipulate," Marcus said, handing it to me. I touched one of the bright petals. "Is it difficult to keep alive?" The woman at the shop said no. "That means yes." She said indirect light. "All light in my house is indirect if the curtains are closed." He smiled, then hesitated as if he might hug me. I stepped forward. His arms went around me carefully. He smelled like rain and the cedar soap I had put in his Christmas stocking 2 years earlier. "Happy birthday, Ma," he said near my ear. "Thank you." The hug lasted only a second, but he had not looked around before giving it. Tessa hugged me next. Her embrace was warmer than the kiss she had given me at the reunion and shorter than an apology. "Mom helped me choose the cake," she said. "It's lemon. Did Food Lion help?" She laughed. "Different bakery. Dinner was loud enough to be normal." Calvin had cooked steaks outside under an umbrella and complained throughout the meal that rain altered the molecular structure of charcoal. Howard drank his allegedly expensive wine with ice. Pamela brought a pie and admitted it was purchased before anyone asked, which suggested personal growth. Marcus sat across from me. He and Tessa were courteous with each other, but their courtesy had edges. He passed her the salt without being asked. She thanked him like a hotel guest. When he told a story about work, she listened with an expression that suggested she was checking it for missing rooms. No one mentioned their marriage. Everyone mentioned the reunion. "We should pick a date now," Pamela said, "before people make plans." "It's 11 months away," Denise replied. "Exactly." Raymond looked up from his steak. "I thought it was canceled." "It is not canceled," 3 of us said. Pamela pointed her fork at me. "Evelyn's just not doing it." "Why?" Howard asked. He had missed the entire story. Nobody had told him because Howard had a habit of turning private matters into philosophical discussions at gas stations. "I'm retired," I said. "From what?" "Unpaid labor." Calvin cleared his throat. "We're handling it." Denise looked at him. "Who is we?" "The household. I need names." "Can we not do this during cake?" Marcus asked. "We're eating steak," Pamela said. "The principle applies." Howard leaned toward me. "Are you not coming?" "If I'm invited." Calvin put down his knife. "You are invited." "Then I'll come." "And bring the cobbler?" Pamela asked. I smiled at her. She lifted both hands. "Store-bought is fine." "That's fear," Denise said. "I recognize it." Everyone laughed except Marcus. He was looking at me with a troubled expression. After dinner, Denise carried in the lemon cake. 8 candles leaned across the icing because she had decided placing 68 would be a fire department matter. They sang. Howard started too low, corrected himself midway through, and ended in a different key from everyone else. I closed my eyes before blowing out the candles. My wish was not noble. I wanted the evening to remain pleasant. That was all. Marcus did not make a toast. He did not stand and tell the room I was the strongest woman he knew. He ate his cake and asked me whether I liked the orchid. That restraint felt more personal than the roses. When the others began leaving, I gathered plates from the table. Denise took them from my hands. "Guest," she said, "I'm helping. You're hovering. I can carry a plate without surrendering my boundaries. Go sit down." I went to the living room and found Marcus by the window. Rain slid down the glass behind him. "Tessa's helping Calvin wrap the steaks," he said. "That is a sentence I never expected to hear. She doesn't trust his plastic wrap technique. No one does." He put his hands in his pockets. "Did you have a good birthday?" "I did." "You like the plant?" "Yes." "The woman said it might bloom again next year." "The woman did not meet me." He smiled, but his eyes stayed serious. "I've been trying to figure out what you want me to say," he said. The living room seemed to narrow around us. "I don't want you to figure out the correct words." "What does that mean?" "You're good at correct words. You know what people want to hear. So I'm supposed to say the wrong thing? You're supposed to know what happened. I know what happened. What happened?" He looked toward the dining room. Denise and Pamela were arguing over who had taken the foil. Tessa's voice carried from the kitchen, asking Calvin why he owned plastic wrap that did not cling. "I hurt you," Marcus said. "How?" "By not introducing you." "Why didn't you?" His gaze returned to me. "I told you. I was trying to keep everything from getting complicated. That describes what you wanted. It doesn't describe what you did." Frustration moved across his face. "I don't understand the difference." "I know. I did not say it cruelly. That seemed to make it worse." He turned back to the window. "I feel like whatever I say, you move the line. The line has not moved. You want me to admit I'm ashamed of you." "No, I don't think you are." He looked surprised. "I think you were ashamed of needing me," I said. "Those are different wounds." Rain ticked against the glass. Marcus looked down at his hands. "Maybe. Maybe is where you are. Stay there until you understand it." "How long is that supposed to take?" "I don't know. You could help me. I could give you an answer to repeat. You always used to help me find the words." "Yes. And now you won't. Not for this." His jaw tightened, but he did not argue. From the kitchen, Tessa called, "Marcus, are you ready? In a minute." She appeared in the doorway holding their coats. Her eyes moved between us. "We should go," she said. Marcus nodded. At the front door, he hugged me again. The hug was briefer this time and sadder. "Thank you for coming," I said. "Thanks for inviting me." "Denise invited you." He leaned back. "You could have let me think it was you. That's how we got here." He gave a reluctant little nod. Tessa kissed my cheek. "Happy birthday." When their car pulled away, I returned to the living room. The orchid sat on the coffee table, vivid and demanding. A small card was tucked into the soil with printed instructions. Bright, indirect light. Water sparingly. Do not allow roots to stand in moisture. I read the directions twice. Calvin came in carrying the last 2 plates. He still hasn't apologized, right, has he? He asked. No. He's stubborn. He comes by it honestly. Calvin grunted. Don't blame me. He's your son. I took the plates from him and carried them into the kitchen. Marcus had left his folded paper napkin beside his cake plate. On it, in his handwriting, he had written 3 words. I'm working on it. I folded the napkin once and put it in my purse. Not because it was enough, because it was the first time he had admitted there was work only he could do. The napkin stayed in my purse long enough to become soft at the folds. Every time I reached for my wallet, I saw Marcus's handwriting. I never unfolded it. I did not need to. 3 words were easier to remember than forgive. The orchid lost its first flower in October. I found the yellow petal on the coffee table and called the nursery before I could stop myself. A woman named Beth explained that orchids were supposed to lose their flowers. Then why sell them blooming? I asked. Because people like flowers. That encourages unrealistic expectations. Beth paused. Is there anything else I can help you with? I told her no. The plant kept living. So did the narrow version of my relationship with Marcus. He called most Sundays. Sometimes he called on Wednesdays too, though he pretended there was a reason. Do you know if baking soda expires? He asked one evening. Are you baking? No. Then why do you need to know? I found a box with a date from 4 years ago. Throw it away. I hate wasting things. You paid 89 cents for it. That isn't the point. It is exactly the point. We spoke for 10 minutes about a box of baking soda. He did not ask me how to fix his marriage. I did not ask whether it still needed fixing. Another time, he called because he had driven past a restaurant Leonard used to like. Dad always ordered the same thing there, he said, fried flounder with extra lemon, and complained it was too much lemon. Marcus laughed. He would squeeze every piece onto the fish. Your father believed disappointment tasted better if he participated. We were quiet after that. I miss him, Marcus said. I know. I miss talking to you about him. You can talk to me about him. I wasn't sure. You are allowed to need me, Marcus. You are not allowed to hide that you need me and punish me for knowing. He did not answer immediately. All right, he said. It was not enough, but it was not nothing. The Sunday before Thanksgiving, he called at 3 p.m. I want to come over, he said. Why? To see you. Did Denise send you? No. Did Tessa? No. Are you bringing flowers? I can turn around and buy some. Don't. He arrived 35 minutes later with nothing in his hands, no foil tray, no plant, no card. He knocked instead of using the spare key, which was still in the shallow dish beside my phone. I had not returned it. I had not put it back on his ring either. When I opened the door, Marcus stood on the porch in jeans and a dark sweater. He looked older than he had at my birthday, not dramatically, just worn around the eyes. Hi, he said. Hi, can I come in? Yes. He followed me to the kitchen but did not open a cupboard. Coffee? I asked. Maybe later. That frightened me more than anything. Marcus sat at the table. I remained standing until he looked up. You might want to sit, he said. People only say that before bad news. It isn't bad news. Then I'll stand. Ma. I sat. He pressed his palms flat against the tabletop. His wedding band clicked softly against the wood. I saw you, he said. I did not move. At the reunion, when we arrived, I saw you standing there. The kitchen clock sounded louder than usual. I know, I said. I've been saying I didn't, or that there were too many people. But I saw you. His gaze stayed on the table. You had that towel in your hand, he continued, and you lifted your arms. Yes, I knew Graham and Louise were right beside me. I knew if I hugged you, it would be obvious that what I'd told them wasn't true. I had imagined those words for months. In my imagination, they brought relief. The real ones made my fingers cold. So you walked past me, I said. Yes. No explanation attached itself to the answer, no if or but. Why did you look at me first? I don't know. Maybe I was hoping you'd understand. Understand what? That I needed a minute. You wanted me to cooperate. Yes. With my own humiliation. His face tightened. I didn't think of it like that. How did you think of it? As managing the moment. I thought I'd introduce you later, more casually. I thought once they were settled, I could make it look natural. What stopped you? The longer I waited, the more obvious it became. So you kept waiting? Yes. I looked at his hands. The nails were bitten down, a habit he had stopped in his 20s and started again before his wedding. What about the napkins? I asked. He closed his eyes briefly. I had them under my arm. I remember. When Louise asked you, I realized she didn't know whether to treat you like my mother. I could have corrected it right there, but you gave me the box. Yes. Why? Because I panicked. You handed me a job. Yes. The answer was so direct it hurt differently. And the toast? He drew in a breath. I thanked Uncle Calvin because Graham thought Calvin had done everything. I thanked Aunt Denise because I knew somebody had to acknowledge the work, but if I thanked you, they would know. Yes. Calvin did almost nothing. I know. Denise did a great deal, but not what you thanked her for. I know, and you knew I had done it. Yes. Every yes removed a place for my anger to push. I had spent months pressing against his denials. Now there was nothing between me and the wound itself. The photograph? I asked. Marcus looked at me then. I was afraid Louise would ask why you weren't standing near me, or why she hadn't been introduced to you before. When Denise said you should be in it, I knew everybody was looking, so you used their hotel as an excuse. Yes. They were staying 15 minutes away. I know. You let me hold the phone. His eyes filled, though no tears fell. Yes. I stood and went to the counter. The coffee maker was empty. I filled the reservoir because my hands needed an assignment. Behind me, Marcus said, I'm sorry. I measured grounds into the filter. I'm sorry I walked past you, he continued. I'm sorry I let you do all that work, then made sure the people whose opinion I cared about didn't see how much I depended on you. I'm sorry I turned you into help instead of my mother. I closed the lid of the machine but did not switch it on. Why did their opinion matter more than mine? It didn't. I turned. He shook his head. No, that's not true. In that moment, it did. I leaned back against the counter. Marcus rubbed his thumb along the edge of his wedding band. When Graham first asked whether we were close, I said not especially because I had been sleeping here and lying to Tessa about where I was. He was asking why I kept disappearing. I thought if I admitted I was running to my mother every time my marriage got hard, he'd think I was weak. So you made me the distant one. Yes. Did you know you were lying at the time? Yes. That answer surprised me. I told myself I was simplifying, he said, that our relationship really was complicated because we'd argued. But I knew. Why didn't you fix it after you and Tessa reconciled? Because then I would have to admit I'd lied. And every time I didn't correct it, correcting it got bigger. That is how lies work. I know that now. You knew it then. He nodded. I knew it then. The coffee maker remained silent between us. I returned to the table and sat. What changed? I asked. Marcus gave a tired laugh. Nothing all at once. That sounds honest. Tessa stopped letting me explain what I meant. Every time I told her my intention, she asked what I did. I hated it, I'm sure. She said I described myself from inside and everybody else from outside. I considered that. That's good. Don't tell her. She'll use it again. I hope she does. He almost smiled. Then his face settled. I kept thinking about the way you looked when you handed Tessa the phone back, he said. Not angry. That would have been easier. You looked embarrassed for me. I was. I think that was when I knew exactly what I'd done. I just spent months trying to find a version where I hadn't chosen it. My throat tightened. Thank you for telling me, I said. That's all? What do you want? Nothing. He answered too quickly, caught himself, then tried again. I don't want you to tell me it's okay. It isn't. I don't want you to say I'm still a good son. I had been about to say something close to that. Marcus looked down. I came because you deserved the truth, even if nothing changes. Something inside me shifted then, not repaired, not erased, a locked place recognizing the right key. I believe your apology, I said. He looked up. That does not mean everything goes back. I know. Do you? I'm trying to. An apology can reopen a door. It cannot carry you through it. His mouth moved slightly. That definitely belongs on a mug. It's my best market. He laughed once and then covered his eyes with one hand. When he lowered it, tears had slipped down his cheeks. He wiped them away, embarrassed but not hiding. I miss you, he said. I miss you too. I don't know how to do this now. Come see me when you want to see me. I do. Call when you want to talk to me, not when you need me to solve something. What if I need both? Say both. He nodded. And tell Tessa the truth before you come sleep in my spare room. I won't be sleeping here. That sounds like something to tell your wife, not me. We're working on it. I studied him. Does she know you're here? Yes. She told me not to bring flowers. I like her. I know. It's becoming a problem. The coffee machine still waited behind me. Do you want coffee? I asked. Yes. I stood and switched it on. While it brewed, Marcus took the green mug from the cupboard. Then he took down the blue one I used and set it beside his. It was a small thing. Most repair is. We drank coffee at the kitchen table. He told me Graham and Louise still did not know the full truth. He had corrected pieces, but not the lie itself. I'm calling them tonight, he said. Do not do it for me. I'm not. I'm doing it because I don't want another relationship built around what I'm hiding. That sounds painful. I think it will be. Good pain exists. That one should go on a very unpopular mug. When he left, he paused beside the shallow dish. His silver key lay inside it. He looked at me but did not reach for it. Not yet, he asked. Not yet. He nodded. Then he opened the front door himself and went home without asking me to make his leaving easier. He called at 9:30 that night. I told them, Marcus said. I was already in bed with the lamp on and a mystery novel open against my knees. I had read the same paragraph 4 times. How did it go? Badly. That can be a sign of success. Graham said he was disappointed in me. Were you hoping he would admire your technique? No. What did Louise say? She asked why I thought loving my mother would make me look weak. I closed the book. What did you tell her? That it wasn't loving you, it was needing you. And? She said needing someone is what makes love inconvenient. That sounded like Louise. Marcus drew a long breath. Then Graham asked how many times I'd stayed here when I told Tessa I was in hotels. What did you say? The number. All of it? Yes. How did he respond? He put Tessa on the phone. I smiled despite myself. Advanced parenting. Nobody yelled. Somehow that was worse. Did you apologize? Yes. Did you explain? I started to. Then I stopped. I heard the weariness in him, but he was not asking me to remove it. I'm proud of you, I said. He went quiet. Thank you. It was the first time I had praised him since the reunion. We both knew it. Marcus began visiting on Sunday afternoons. Not every Sunday. Consistency is not the same thing as a schedule, and I did not want either of us measuring repair by perfect attendance. Sometimes he called and said he had laundry, errands, or a tired wife at home. He no longer invented reasons. When he did come, he knocked. The first visit lasted 40 minutes. We drank coffee and argued about whether the orchid needed a larger pot. The second time, he stayed for dinner. I made chicken and rice, and he washed the dishes without hovering nearby until I asked. The third time, he sat in the living room while I folded towels. You came here to watch me do laundry? I asked. I came to see you. This is what seeing me looks like today. All right. He picked up a towel and folded it into a shape no linen closet would recognize. I unfolded it. That is hostile, he said. That is a triangle. It fits in the closet. So would a raccoon. We still have standards. He watched me fold it properly and tried again. During those visits, Marcus told me about ordinary things before difficult ones. He asked how my water aerobics class was going. He remembered when Denise strained her shoulder and called to ask whether she needed anything. He listened to my complaints about the pharmacy changing the color of my prescription bottle caps. Sometimes he still needed help. One afternoon, he said, "I need to tell you something about Tessa, and I also want your opinion." I set down my coffee. "Do you want advice or agreement?" "Advice. Are you going to tell her you asked me?" "Yes, then go ahead." He told me they had been invited to spend Christmas with Graham and Louise. Tessa wanted to go for 10 days. Marcus wanted to go for 4 because the visit felt like an extended trial. "Are they putting you on trial?" I asked. "No." "Have they mentioned a sentence?" "No." "Then perhaps you are confusing consequences with a courtroom again." He groaned. "Whose side are you on?" "Tessa's." "I appreciate the consistency." He went for 8 days. When he returned, he brought me a small jar of preserves Louise had made and a note from Graham. It read, "Evelyn, I'm glad he has you. I'm learning that he always did." I kept the note in the kitchen drawer with takeout menus and batteries. Not everything important needed framing. Thanksgiving had been held at Marcus and Tessa's house. It was their idea. Tessa invited Calvin, Denise, Pamela, and me. She did not say, "Could you come early?" She did not send me a menu to correct. When I asked what I could bring, she said wine. "You don't trust my cooking?" I asked. "I trust that you're a guest." "I can be a guest with a pie." "Wine, Evelyn." "I brought wine." Marcus overcooked the turkey and tried to carve it with a knife too dull for butter. Calvin offered advice from the doorway. Denise told him that if he knew so much, he should take the knife. "I'm a guest," Calvin said. "Your sister brings wine one time and suddenly everybody understands the word." The mashed potatoes had small lumps. Pamela discovered this and looked genuinely thrilled. "These are rustic," Tessa said. "They're potatoes," Marcus replied. Dinner was not smooth, the gravy cooled. One side of the table could not hear the other. Howard had not been invited, but Calvin called him by mistake while trying to take a photograph, then put him on speaker during the blessing. It was one of the best family meals I had attended. Not because Marcus served me first or because Tessa asked whether I was comfortable. They did both. It was good because no one disappeared behind the work. Marcus burned his wrist lifting the turkey and admitted it hurt. Tessa forgot the rolls and said so instead of quietly blaming the oven. When the sink filled with dishes, everyone stood. I reached for a plate. Tessa handed me my wine glass instead. "Living room," she said. "I have fully functioning hands. I know. Use one to hold this." On the sofa, I watched Marcus scrape plates while Calvin rinsed and Denise loaded the dishwasher incorrectly. No one performed gratitude. They simply did the work. Tessa sat beside me. "I owe you an apology too," she said. "For the napkins? For coming to your house ready to blame you for making him choose. You had partial information. I also wanted the explanation that required the least change from me." I turned toward her. She rubbed one finger over the stem of her wine glass. "If you were controlling and Marcus was trapped between us, then I only had to establish better rules. If he was telling different truths to different people, I had to reconsider our marriage. How is the reconsidering going?" "Slowly. That is probably good. I'm still angry you let him hide at your house." "I know. I understand why you did it. I'm still angry. Both can be true." She nodded. "I'm sorry," I said. I enjoyed being the person he came to more than I questioned what he was avoiding. Tessa's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. "Thank you." We did not hug. Sometimes honesty deserves room more than touch. Winter narrowed the days. The orchid dropped its last flower but kept thick green leaves. The fern filled out on both sides, though the damaged fronds never turned green again. I learned to stop waiting for them to. Marcus and I had one bad argument in January. He canceled a Sunday visit 15 minutes before he was supposed to arrive because Graham called asking for help choosing a laptop. I said the timing hurt. Marcus accused me of keeping score. I told him repair without memory was just repetition with better manners. He hung up. 20 minutes later, he called back. "I'm sorry I canceled carelessly," he said. "I should have called Graham after seeing you. You could also have told me yesterday when you knew he needed help." "Yes, I am keeping score a little." "I know. I'm trying not to. I know that too." He came the following Sunday and did not bring flowers. By March, his silver key still sat in the shallow dish. He never asked for it again. One afternoon, while he stood in my kitchen making coffee, I picked it up. "Give me your key ring," I said. He turned. "Why?" "Because I want to steal your gym tag. You'd have to go to the gym. Then you're safe." He handed me the ring. I worked the silver key back into place. The metal caught under my thumbnail exactly as Calvin's storage key had months earlier. Marcus watched but did not reach to help. When I returned the ring, he closed his hand around it. "What does this mean?" he asked. "It means you can enter in an emergency. Not whenever I want. You have a doorbell, I know. Do you? I've become very familiar with it." I touched his cheek. He leaned into my hand for 1 second, without checking who could see. The reunion invitation arrived in April. It was printed on bright yellow paper in letters large enough to read from another room. Carter Family Reunion. Saturday, July 18th. Calvin and Denise's property. Denise had added property in quotation marks. At the bottom, she had written, "You are invited as a guest." "This is legally binding." I called her. "What happens if I violate the terms? You have to organize the reunion. That is severe. We've become a strict household. How is planning going?" "Fine." The speed of her answer told me otherwise. "Denise, the rental company changed owners. The canopy has mildew. Pamela wants a pie contest, and Calvin thinks we can smoke 3 meats at once." "You cannot." "I know that. Do you want advice?" She was quiet. "No," she said at last. "I want sympathy." "You have it. That's less useful." "I know. Will you come?" I looked at the yellow invitation. Yes, Marcus and Tessa are coming. Graham and Louise, too. My hand tightened around the phone. "Did you invite them?" Marcus asked if it was all right. Calvin said they're family. "They are. You still coming?" "Yes. You can change your mind. So can they." Denise let out a breath. Good. As July approached, people began calling me out of habit. Pamela wanted to know whether her pie needed refrigeration. Raymond asked what time lunch would be. Howard asked whether the dress was river casual, a phrase he had invented. I referred every question to Calvin or Denise. Some people laughed. Some sounded irritated. Raymond said, "It would take you 2 seconds to answer." "It will take Calvin the same 2 seconds," I told him. The calls eventually stopped. Marcus never asked me to do anything for the reunion. That absence felt strange, too. One Sunday, he mentioned he had volunteered to handle the food tables. "Do you know where Calvin stores the tablecloth clips?" he asked. "Yes." He waited. I drank my coffee. "I'll ask him," he said. "Good." The morning of the reunion, I dressed slowly. I considered the blue dress, which had been cleaned and hanging in the back of my closet. I took it out, held it against myself, then put it back. Not because Marcus had ruined it, because I did not owe the day a reenactment. I wore a yellow blouse, white pants, and flat sandals. At Food Lion, I bought a peach pie with a clearance sticker on the bottom. The cashier asked whether I wanted a bag. "No," I said. "I want everyone to see the label." I arrived 40 minutes after the official start time. For 17 years, I had been the first car at Calvin's and the last one to leave. Turning onto the gravel drive with people already gathered felt like entering a play halfway through. The canopy stood straighter than usual, though it was a different color. The drink table was in full sun. Someone had placed the forks at the dessert end of the food line. Calvin hurried across the yard carrying a roll of paper towels, exactly as he had the year before. No one ran toward me with a question. I parked, picked up the pie, and stepped out. Across the yard, Marcus stood beneath the maple tree with Tessa, Graham, and Louise. He looked up. His eyes found mine. Marcus did not hesitate. He said something to Graham, touched Tessa's arm, and walked across the yard toward me, not around a table, not in my general direction. To me. I stood beside my car holding a grocery store pie and watched my son cross the same distance he had used to erase me a year earlier. He did not look to see who was watching. He did not wait for me to come closer. When he reached me, he opened both arms. "Hi, Ma." I stepped into them. The hug was warm and unhurried. His hand rested between my shoulder blades, and mine pressed against the dark blue shirt he had chosen instead of the pale green one. I felt his breath leave him. "You came," he said. "I was invited." "I know." He released me and looked at the pie. "Is that from Food Lion? The finest clearance shelf in Virginia. Pamela's going to feel threatened. She should." He reached for it, then stopped. "Can I carry that?" "Yes." The question mattered. So did the answer. Marcus took the pie and walked beside me toward the maple tree. Tessa smiled as we approached. Louise rose from her chair. Graham stood with a paper cup in one hand. Marcus did not rush the moment or decorate it. "Graham, Louise," he said, "this is my mother, Evelyn Carter." Louise's eyes shone behind her glasses. She held out her hand. "I don't believe we were properly introduced last year." "No," I said, taking it. "We weren't." Her grip tightened gently. "I'm glad we are now. So am I." Graham stepped forward next. "Evelyn." "Graham." He shook my hand, then used his other one to cover the back of mine. "I'm glad you came," he said. "Calvin's property is hard to resist." Behind him, Calvin shouted, "I heard that." "He can hear the word property from 6 acres away," I said. Graham laughed. Tessa hugged me. "You look beautiful." "So do you." She wore dark green pants this year, which suggested she had learned what barbecue sauce could do. Marcus held up the pie. "Where does this go?" "The dessert table," I said automatically. He raised one eyebrow. "I assume," I added, "I'm a guest." "Right." He looked around. There were 3 tables that could reasonably have been called the dessert table. One held half-a-pound cake and a set of car keys. One held plastic cups. The third had a paper sign taped to it that read, "Deserts." 2 S's, I said. "I know." "Do you?" "I'm choosing my battles." He carried the pie toward the misspelled sign. I stayed with the Whitmores. For 1 second, I wanted to follow him. I wanted to explain that the peach pie should not sit in direct sun and that the tablecloth needed another clip on the riverside. Then Louise touched my sleeve. "Sit with me," she said. "I saved you a chair." The chair was beneath the maple tree. I sat. No one asked me where the napkins were. Louise had brought coffee cake, cut into exact squares and arranged in a covered tray. "You returned my dish," I said. "I own others." I thought perhaps that was your only one. It was my favorite, but I decided not to build a false story around it. I smiled. Graham lowered himself into the chair beside her. "We've been practicing honesty." "How is that going?" I asked. "Slowly," he said. "That is usually a good sign." He looked across the yard at Marcus, who was trying to secure the dessert sign while holding the pie with one hand. Tessa came over, took the pie from him, and waited while he retaped the paper. "He told us everything," Graham said. "I know. I did not make it easy. You were disappointed. I was. In him? In myself, too." I waited. Graham rolled the paper cup between his palms. I liked the version of Marcus who did not need much. It felt familiar. Louise told me. She would. She likes you anyway. An old and persistent error. Louise leaned past me. "I can still hear you." That was the goal. Their ease had texture, not perfection, practice. Graham looked at me again. "I'm sorry I accepted a story about you without asking whether it was true." You had no reason to distrust him. That is a kind thing to say. It isn't entirely forgiveness. I understand, he did. That made it easier to offer. Across the yard, Denise spotted me and hurried over. She wore a wide straw hat and carried a clipboard. "You're late," she said. "I'm a guest. Guests can read clocks. Guests can also leave." She hugged me so tightly the clipboard pressed into my back. "You came," she whispered. I said I would. "You say lots of things. I keep most of them." She released me and immediately looked toward the food tables. "Have you noticed the drink table is in the sun?" "No. You're facing it." "I've noticed nothing. The ice is melting. I'm sure you'll solve it." She sighed. "You're enjoying this. A little." Before Denise could recruit someone, Marcus stepped out from behind the dessert table. "Tessa," he called, "can you help me move the drinks?" Tessa surveyed the table. "We need 2 more people. I'll get Raymond. And take the glass bottles out first." "I know. You cracked one last Thanksgiving." That table was uneven. The bottle did not care. Marcus found Raymond and Howard. Together, the 4 of them moved the table beneath another tree. Nobody dropped anything. Howard complained about lifting, but continued lifting. Denise watched with her mouth slightly open. "He saw it himself," she said. "He has eyes. He never used them at reunions before. He was busy having a mother." She looked at me. I had meant it as a joke, but the words carried their own history. Denise hooked her arm through mine. "Come see the food," she said. "Why?" "So you can appreciate what I survived." I allowed her to lead me across the yard, but I kept my hands to myself. The reunion was rougher than the ones I had organized. The macaroni had developed a skin. The green beans were in a crock pot with no serving spoon. Calvin had placed wet barbecue tongs directly on the paper tablecloth, leaving a dark orange stain. The chairs did not match, and someone had forgotten trash bags. It was also alive. People found what they needed or asked the person actually responsible. Cousin Raymond's new girlfriend, Marisol, had brought an enormous bowl of pasta salad. Pamela had organized her pie contest and appointed herself the judge. Howard wore a shirt printed with small sailboats because he had decided that was river casual. Calvin stood behind the ribs wearing an apron that said, "Property of the chef." Technically accurate, I told him. He lifted the lid of the smoker. "You want to check these?" "No, just look. I am looking. Do they look done?" "They look like ribs." Calvin's forehead creased. "Use the thermometer," Denise said. "I know how to cook meat. You asked Evelyn whether it was done from 6 feet away. I asked for her impression. My impression is that you own a thermometer," I said. He muttered something, but used it. The ribs were done. Calvin looked disappointed that the tool had removed the drama. At lunch, I filled my own plate. Marcus appeared beside me with a serving spoon. "Green beans?" he asked. "Yes, please." He put some on my plate, then served Louise behind me. It was an ordinary gesture. That was what made it beautiful. At the end of the table, Pamela inspected my pie. "You left the label on," she said. "I wanted to establish provenance. It was on clearance, only the best." She turned the pie around. "This expires tomorrow, then today is our lucky day." Pamela cut herself a slice before lunch was over. She tasted it with the concentration of a surgeon. "Well?" I asked. "It needs cinnamon." "Tell Food Lion." "I might. You would have to admit you bought pie there." She took another bite. "I'm willing to make sacrifices for quality. We ate under the canopy. It had been borrowed from Denise's church and smelled faintly of basement, but it did not lean." Marcus sat between Tessa and me. Graham and Louise sat across from us. He asked me whether I wanted sauce, asked Louise whether she needed more water, and listened to Graham explain why charcoal made food taste better than gas. There was no performance in his attention. He did not lean closer to me when someone lifted a phone. He did not call me Ma more loudly around the Whitmores. He simply made room. That should not have felt extraordinary. I let it anyway. Halfway through lunch, Lee the neighbor wandered over carrying nothing. Calvin pointed a rib at him. "You're not eating 4 plates this year." I brought ice, Lee said. You brought ice after we moved the table. Still ice. Marcus stood. Lee, have you met Tessa's parents? I don't believe I have. Marcus introduced them. Then he turned to me. And you know my mother, Evelyn. Lee frowned. I've known Evelyn longer than you. That's true. You introduced me to her last year. Marcus's face froze. I looked at Lee. He was having an unusual day. Oh. Lee nodded as if that explained anything. Well, good to see you again. When he walked away, Marcus covered his face with one hand. Tessa laughed first. Graham followed. Then Louise. I touched Marcus's wrist. It's funny, I said. It really isn't. It will be someday. What day? Apparently today. He lowered his hand, smiling despite himself. After lunch, Calvin tapped a plastic cup with a fork. Denise groaned. We agreed no speeches. I have announcements. You have a microphone voice without a microphone. Calvin ignored her. He thanked everyone who had helped. Not generally, by name. He thanked Denise for the calls and the food lists, Marcus and Tessa for setting up the tables, Raymond for the canopy, Marisol for arriving early, Howard for bringing ice before Lee claimed it. Howard raised both hands in vindication. Then Calvin looked at me. I prepared myself. And Evelyn, he said, for coming. That was all. My throat tightened. No credit for 17 years. No suggestion that I had guided them secretly. No attempt to make my presence useful. Just gratitude that I had chosen to be there. I raised my cup. Calvin nodded once and continued talking about trash bags. Denise sat beside me. He practiced that, she whispered. I can tell. He wanted to thank you for giving us the binder. I would have left. I told him. Thank you. You're welcome. The photograph happened near sunset. Denise began shouting names and arranging people beneath the maple tree. No one listened. Calvin insisted the river should be visible. Pamela wanted the canopy in the background because it made the event look official. Howard stood in front despite being taller than almost everyone. Tessa came to me. Do you want to be in the picture? She asked. Yes. She took my hand and brought me into the group. Marcus stood on my other side. Louise and Graham joined Tessa. Calvin complained that the light was going, though the sun was still above the trees. Who's taking it? Raymond asked. Everyone looked around. Lee had a plate in one hand and a beer in the other. I can, he said. Put the plate down, Denise told him. It's balanced. Put it down. He surrendered the plate and accepted Tessa's phone. We crowded together. Marcus put one arm around Tessa and the other around me. His hand rested on my shoulder. No one hurried me out of the frame. Lee held the phone up. Say property. Half the group laughed before the photograph was taken. In the first picture, Calvin's eyes were closed. In the second, Howard was looking at the river. In the third, everyone was tired of trying and smiling like themselves. That was the one Tessa sent me. The afternoon thinned slowly. Graham and Calvin walked toward the river to discuss boats neither of them owned. Louise helped Denise cover the food. Tessa sat with Pamela and allowed herself to be interrogated about pie crust. I remained beneath the maple tree. I did not clear a plate. I did not fold a chair. For a while, nobody sat beside me. The old fear moved quietly in my chest. Without a job, I might become part of the scenery. Then Raymond brought me a cup of coffee. Marisol asked how long I had lived in Virginia. Howard pulled over a chair and told me an unnecessarily detailed story about his drive from Maryland. They wanted me there. Not everyone. Not perfectly. But enough. Near the food table, someone called, "Evelyn, where are the serving spoons?" I looked toward the voice. It was Lee, holding a tray of cobbler. "I have no idea," I said. Marcus was carrying a stack of cups nearby. "I'll find them," he said. He went to the blue tubs. There were only 3 this year, and none had labels. He opened the first, then the second. "Utensils are in the one with the paper towels," Denise called. "Why?" Calvin packed them. Marcus found the spoons and handed one to Lee. No disaster occurred. As the sun lowered, I carried my empty pie plate toward the car. Marcus caught up with me near the gravel drive. "Let me take that. I can carry it." "I know." I handed it to him anyway. At the car, he put the plate on the passenger seat beside my purse. "Did you have a good time?" he asked. I did. Even with the macaroni, it was resilient. The forks were in the wrong place. "I noticed. I knew you noticed." I said nothing. That was brave. I suffered quietly. He smiled. Behind us, Denise shouted his name. Someone needed help taking down the canopy. "You should go," I said, "in a minute." He leaned against the open car door. "Coffee tomorrow?" he asked. 4 o'clock? 4. "Come because you want to see me." "I do." I touched his arm. "I know." He hugged me once more. When he released me, he did not glance toward the yard to see who had witnessed it. He closed my car door and stepped back. I started the engine. In the side mirror, I watched him turn toward the canopy, where Calvin and Denise were arguing about which pole had to come down first. Marcus stopped, looked back, and lifted one hand. I lifted mine. Then he went to help his family, and I drove home while there was still enough light to see the road.